2+2 is proud to bring you the 2+2 PokerCast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club.
This week on the PokerCast, Steve D has come to join us in studio. Chris Grove is also on the show, and an update on W Coop. Now, here they are! Just here to fulfill the corporate agenda, Adam and Terrence!
Welcome, everybody, to the 2+2 PokerCast presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. I am your host, Dave Schwartz, alongside, as usual, Mr. Terrence Chan, and producing Roscoe P. Coltrane. Terrence, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. This is, I think, I snuck a peek into the mailbag, so we will reference that this is the PokerCast.
Oh, right.
The date, September 8th. 2015.
Nice. Yes. That's not a bad idea. I like that idea. We'll get to that email later.
I put the dates in the show thread.
You put the dates in the show,
yeah,
but some people only
Just
download the podcast through their podcast subscription app, and they are a few weeks behind. They don't know what day it is. So
Indeed.
There you go. It is the 8th of September.
September 8th. You know that date because you're leaving. Your fight was supposed to be in 3 days.
My fight was supposed to be in 3 days. I should be starting to wake. I originally asked to do today instead of Wednesday because I didn't want to be doing the show on the day I'm cutting weight. But yeah, my
you're not cutting weight.
I am not.
It's no
I'm
fun.
Not cutting weight. I ate about like.
You're not going to do it for sport. You're not just
I went to Vija's, which we've talked about on the show,
Sure.
and ate 12 orders of lamb pop.
Did you?
Lamb lollipops, something like that.
Those are great.
Yeah.
How's your arm?
Yes, my arm can almost fully extend and almost fully bend. It's getting there. I can.
You're ahead of schedule, you'd say?
Yeah, I can pick up small items. I think I'm ahead of schedule. I think it's healing very well. My physio is very happy with how it's performing. Just kind of got to keep up the exercises and the working on it. Getting that rubber ball. Have you ever taken a ball and rubbed out a joint like a foam roller like people do?
You've got an awesome drop right there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You ever grabbed a ball and rubbed one out? Sorry.
Right.
Go
So
ahead.
you take this medical ball and you just you just grind the shit out of your own muscle tissue to break it all up.
Oh, no.
And so it increases.
Let's see, I've done that.
It's like the same the way people use foam rollers, right? And
I do use those.
You just gotta. It's like a hardcore foam roller. So you take like a lacrosse ball or something like that. Something hard that won't give, and then you just kind of mash the muscle that's used. So a lot of times people use it for tight hips, tight quads, tight shoulders, stuff like that. So I have to kind of mash my triceps and my forearms, and supposedly that'll get better. But it's funny. I looked at the card. Ross, you're still going to the fight, right?
I am going. Yeah. Saturday we bought tickets.
You already had tickets, but the card's been decimated. I think they started with 16 fights. They've got 10 now.
No, really?
Yeah. So I'm not the only.
Actually,
guy
we ended up buying the tickets after you. Were doing it.
Well, there you go.
Well, it was such good fun last time when we went.
It was so much fun. Yeah.
Support your local MMA.
And watch the fights out in Richmond at the River Rock again. I'm guessing.
Yeah. So I'll be heading out there too. So it's getting there. It's not too bad. I had Haas TBF come up for the weekend too. So that was part of my Vija's trip. So
what's new in Haas's world?
He's doing his doctorate in clinical psychology. His wife is
Where's he doing the doctorate?
At Harvard. No less.
Just Harvard.
Well, he did his undergrad at Princeton, so he could, you're not supposed to do your undergrad and your doctorate in the same place. So you had to go from Princeton to Harvard.
Wow.
So aside from being the greatest limit hold'em player of all time, and
he's a genius.
Yeah.
What are you doing using your big school words? Just use normal people words, and I'll understand what you're talking about.
He's very good with that, actually. He's very good at playing the deaf guy, and his wife is 6 or 7 months pregnant or something.
Oh, good for him.
That, so
she got a job in Seattle.
She got a job in Seattle, so we'll be seeing more of him come up to the Northwest, and
Good.
So speaking of visitors from Seattle,
and speaking of traveling, I'm heading down to San Francisco on Thursday.
Okay.
Me and my son are going on a father-son trip.
I'm flying to Hong Kong on Wednesday.
Nice.
So we're both passing in the airport.
So looking forward to it. We're doing Oakland Raiders game on Sunday. I've never been to an NFL game, which is crazy. I'm a huge fan.
Are you going to wear your gang colors?
I'm going to jump into the black hole with all the crazy. No. And then we're going to a baseball game. We're going to go to a Giants game. We're going to go to the 49ers game on the Monday night game this opening weekend of the NFL season. So it's going to be a great trip.
You've been to the Bay Area, right?
I have several times.
Yeah,
Love the Bay Area.
First time for the kid, I assume.
Yeah.
And it'll be great. There's so much. It's a fun city.
Speaking of which, so next week...
Crazy good for kids. There's I don't remember what the name of it is, but they have a crazy good science museum
really?
in San Francisco. Like, it's really fun, really interactive, as you would expect for San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Cool. I'll check that out. Next week is going to be a little bit tough. I don't get back until Tuesday night, and you're leaving on Wednesday for Hong Kong for...
So
you're going to go hibernate for the winter, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the opposite of hibernate. I think everybody in Canada hibernates, right? Everybody else, they hibernate or go play hockey. But yeah, I'm going to go to Southeast Asia. We'll have to do the remote after that, so... Hopefully we can put together some kind of show next week, but we'll have to...
We'll figure out what we can do next week and go from there. This week, we don't have a guest. This is sort of the dog days of poker. It's, they talk about the dog days of summer in baseball. In poker, you've got this sort of maybe a month where... it hasn't started the television yet for the World Series of Poker, or it hasn't gotten very deep.
Right.
So you don't have all those storylines where you can go get the chip lead, or like for us, to bring a guest onto the show, you don't want to go get that guy until he's been on TV, and you've got a bunch of hands you can talk about and situations. And there's not a ton going on, so it's just...
We did have the end of EPT Barcelona and all the controversy that happened that, but we also covered it when it happened last week, right here on the show.
We'll talk more about that this week as well.
But that's fair enough.
There is WCOOP.
There's WCOOP,
exactly.
and that's
there's always something.
Well, and everybody's busy too playing. And by the way, we'll get to that too. I mentioned NFL season starting. The PokerCast Fantasy Football League was last night. And
how many did you get?
We got 14.
Okay.
What happened was we had 12. One guy we couldn't get a hold of. So we got Remco. Remco was jumped in, and then the guy that we couldn't get a hold of was like, "Dude, what are you talking about? I already paid and everything." So we went from 12 to 14. We found somebody else.
Okay.
So we figured it all. Oh, Scott Wilson joined at the last minute. And I have my big fantasy football thing tonight, big buy-in at Scott Wilson's house.
Okay.
$1,500 buy-in's probably over my bankroll, but I won last year, so I'm taking a shot.
How many teams is that?
That is 12, so first is like 6 or 7 grand it ends up being.
Do you pay second when there's 12?
Yeah, there's second in the regular season. There's a regular season winner, which is smaller, and then the playoff winner is big, and you can end up winning both, but it's a lot of fun, so looking forward to that one.
Baller fantasy football.
Yeah, so that'll be good. Oh, and speaking of Remco, he just moved to Canada.
Really?
They got a place in Toronto.
He got married, what was that, like 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And he decided to move to Canada.
She's Canadian, so they moved to Toronto.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense.
Which is actually a perfect spot for him. He can fly in and out of Toronto to all over the world.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, Toronto is a good place. You can still go to EPTs, but Vegas isn't that far if he has to go to Vegas for some reason. It's in Canada, so you can play internet poker and do all the internet poker stuff.
It's not Vancouver.
It's not Vancouver. and he'll be possibly regretting this decision sometime
in a month or two.
When it hits like the old minus 20 and
speaking of sports, the 2+2 PokerCast official English football teams. Remember we talked about
the football
that.
with the round ball.
The real football.
That's what you're talking about.
Yes. They had the weekend off last week, so they didn't play. I guess it's because a lot of the international stuff's going on. The European Cup is coming up next year.
Okay.
There's a lot of qualifying. I don't know if that's the reason, but I'm guessing that's the reason there was no games this weekend. But I did watch Germany beat Scotland, which was good. Good game to watch. A bit of a correction from last week's show.
Before we get to that,
sure.
You mentioned you're happy Germany beat Scotland with the German guy. We haven't talked about whether we're going to the World Series Germany.
We haven't.
Yet. I know that we dangled it out there like a carrot.
It's not far away.
It's not far away, and I understand.
What are you going to do? You're going to Hong Kong. How are you going to just keep going?
Well, Terrence the Jet Setter.
There's a solid 2 weeks in between, next. There's still 3 weeks. I know you've always been talked about, the kids and the wife.
It's tough,
not easy. But you've it's the motherland for you, or the father. I think
it would be
the fatherland. Anyway, it's
something
motherland,
like that.
Not Russia, anyway. But let's make a decision. Are we going into World Series?
So we have to make a decision right now.
I'm not right now.
Well, here's the problem. But
we were there
before we started talking about it. My son has tried out for rep hockey, and then he's 10. And basically how it works here in Canada, everybody's hockey mad. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's not just for fun. You've got to have the best players playing the best teams or whatever. So he went to the tryouts.
It's not for fun. Why would you have children participate in a sport for fun?
It is totally nutso.
It's probably not like the best part of the sporting culture.
It's the worst.
When you in terms of and this is not like a Canada thing or a U.S. thing or a Europe thing. It's like whatever sport you play in, in your country, there's probably way too much pressure on the kids to do well.
There's another example. Exactly. In your country, I'm sure there's another example of how we approach hockey.
Exactly.
And they're 10 years old, and they get them into rep tryouts, and they all want to be on the best team, and so it's this thing. And then so what happened was he tried out. He's a goalie. They didn't have a ton of goalies his age, so he's kind of in the running for the rep teams, and looks like he's going to make one. And when you do make one, it's like 6 days a week.
Wow.
Of practices and games.
Right. So you can't just throw that on your wife and say, you got to drive the kid every single day while I'm gone.
Because we have another kid, and she goes to a bunch of other stuff. So it kind of leaves my wife, especially when you're going to this trip, I don't want to go to Berlin for 3 days. You know what I mean? Like
certainly not. It takes 3 days to get over jet lag.
Yeah, so you want to go there for a couple of weeks, right? You want to experience what you can experience.
The World Series at least a couple weeks long, I think. Yeah.
At least, maybe more. So it becomes really, really tough on my wife if I do take off. I've talked to her. She said go.
Really?
So I've got the okay to go, but I know how
you
hard.
feel guilty.
I feel really bad because I know how hard it would be for her. So anyway, we'll.
I'm calling you. Is it? Are you a flush draw or are you a gut shot?
Wow. I'm a
somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between, I would say.
A little bit better than a flush.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. But so let's get to the correction. Last week we were talking to Lee Jones at the time, I believe, and we noticed somehow or another that the Greek players were buying into the Wacoop.
Like there was 12 players registered for the 10K 8 game when Lee mentioned it, and I look and they're all from Greece.
Yeah, and off the top of my head, I thought it was currency hedge,
which I thought was pretty brilliant. If you were right,
it turned out I wasn't even close to right because you could just keep the money in your account. The same thing would happen.
Yeah,
but what happens is it's a tax thing for the Greek players,
right?
Because and I'm probably going to get this wrong, but if they're playing a session, they have to pay taxes on each session.
Yeah, they're taxed. Yeah, it's per session or per day or something like that. I read that too. And
so if they buy into this tournament, the money is not in their account to be paid tax on at the time. So I'm guessing that when they have a losing day, let's say they lose 10K, then they no, I guess that wouldn't.
Right. No, I think like let's say you start today with 100K in your account. You run good, and then you win 110K, and then you register for 10K. At the end of the day, your account balance is exactly the same as when you started.
So you pay no tax.
Still 100%, so I guess that's a tax-free day. And then the next day, when you lose 10K, and then you're down to 90, you unreg from that tournament, now you're back to 100. You also had a break-even day, so I guess you also... I would assume that's how it works, but maybe we'll be issuing a correction next week on that.
Exactly.
It's not like we know what we're talking about around here.
No, we don't. All right, the last thing we get to is a PokerCast survey. We did for people who come to the forum.
Did we mention that on the show?
I think we mentioned we were going to do it.
We mentioned in passing. Yeah. I finally got off my ass and put it all together, so thank you to everybody who responded. I threw it out on my Twitter. You threw it out on your Twitter in the PokerCast forum. So we got some results. So let me fire this off to you. Are you anxious?
Do you want to do the questions?
Are you excited?
I'm kind of excited, although I know we had sort of a fun question at the end that we'll get to. That
sure,
I got crushed in.
Sure. So we've had 71 responses, and I'll run it down.
I didn't know it was that many.
Yeah, I'll run it down. The very first question was how often do you actually listen to the show? 93% of people said almost never miss an episode. So
that's awesome.
We're crushing it on that. So we can brag about that. I mean, bias, sample size, whatever. People who actually take the survey may be slightly more interested in doing that. We had a bunch of other questions. I won't go through all of them in the interest of time, but just
what would you like to spend more time on? Was the second question?
Yeah. So we asked, what would you like us to spend more time on? There's a bunch of choices, and you can check all the boxes, and these won't add up to 100% because you could check multiple things, or you could check not more than one. So we had, in case you missed it, the length of the interviews, the number of people we interview, 140 or less, the listener Q&A, mailbag and forum, and Ross report, which was pretty much covers all of the regular stuff, right? I mean, And yes, and we were aware that people wrote in Poker Stars segments, "Screw you guys, we have to."
Oh, did they say? Oh, that was in the.
There's like an other one where you're allowed to write in, and then some people wrote up like Steve or Lee Jones or something like that.
Oh, that was the spend less time on, or
spend more time. Spend more time on. So I broke it down into both spend more and spend time. 68% of people want us to spend more time on. In case you missed it, 3% want us to spend less time on it.
Wow.
So that's sticking around. Segment. How about that?
All right.
28% of people want us to do longer interviews, and 15% want us to do shorter interviews.
Okay. So we're about the right length, it seems.
Yep. 25% want us to do more interviews, and 14% want us to do fewer interviews, so that's the same.
Okay.
People like their 140 or less. 30% want us to do more 140 or less. Only 4% of people want us to do less, maybe because it's short and sweet. It doesn't take very long. 23% want us to do more listener Q&A. 27% want us to do less. So more people want us to do less listener Q&A than more. That surprised me a little.
Okay.
Similarly, for the mailbag and responding to stuff on the forum, 15% want more of it, and 38% want less of it.
Less of mailbag.
So, less mailbag.
Okay.
And the Ross report was by far the most controversial.
Was it really?
The most controversial because 37% of people want more of it, and 23% of people want less of it, making it pretty much the most divided and highly responded thing. So everybody, that's a total of 60%, right? So only 40% of people have no opinion. So everybody always wants more or wants less. It was like the second most popular want more, and the third most popular want less. But still more people want it than don't. So Ross, you're still a popular answer.
We're not cutting that one.
All right.
Not. We asked about show length, whether they wanted it the same or longer, or if they fast forward sometimes, or if it's too long. 79% of people think the show length is as good as it is.
Wow, okay.
All right, so people like it. The types of guests, 70% of people want us to interview more high-stakes players. 58.
That's correct.
Like Patrick, for example.
It'd be nice to get Patrick, actually.
58% of people... 58% of people want us to interview more mid-stakes grinders as well as recreational players. So the exact same number as interesting recreational players. Only 39% of people want us to interview more media and journalists. 44% voted for industry leaders and builders, and just 11% of people want fewer guests. They just want to listen to our
I love those 11%. People.
Yeah, exactly. And those are the 11%, the very small minority that will be happy this week, actually.
Yeah, because there's no guests.
There's just a lot talking about it.
Yeah.
Twitch, this surprised me.
Okay.
So we asked if we've talked on the show about how
we've done
it. We've Twitched on the show, we've streamed on the show, and we've also asked, had many requests to do it. Only 3% of people said they wouldn't miss it if we watched Twitch. 35% of people said they would watch sometimes. The rest were like unlikely to watch or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because the way that people consume podcasts is myself isn't visual.
Yeah,
I listen to podcasts while I'm doing other things.
Yep.
While
it's
I'm
not
driving.
something you participate in live.
That's right. Yeah.
Twitch is for participating live and interacting. Yeah.
And it's fun to do. I think for us, it's fun to do it once in a while. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's probably going to end up happening. We'll do some episodes on Twitch, maybe here and there, but I don't think it's going to be something that we do all the time. I just don't think it's not really something that lends itself well to Twitch, it seems like, for me.
I agree. And we've got technical problems with doing it anyway. Ross's computer can't handle.
Yeah, I mean, we could solve that by spending some money, whatever, if it was worth it. But I'm not sure that
we could just spend that money on hookers and blow.
Right, when you can you've got other uses for your finite resources.
Exactly. The music, we put this in there because we had the listener last week to say that the music was too long. Unfortunately, only 7% of people agree with that particular gentleman, and he might have been one of them. Mm-hmm. 14% of people just don't like Ross's taste in music, but they're fine with the length. 54%
more country music.
54% of people think the music is great.
Cool.
The audio quality, 76% say it's at least excellent or pretty good.
I want to talk about that for a quick sec.
Sure.
So we used to do the show, and sorry this segment's going on long, but it was really fascinating for us to get this feedback from our listeners.
And keep throwing it in there. It's stickied on the top of the PokerCast forum. So especially this is your chance to get your voice heard.
Absolutely. And there's a box to write whatever you want to write in. And give us your feedback. It doesn't have to be as structured as this. But we used to do the show in a studio. We did it in a studio for years and years and years.
Right.
And the sound quality, of course, when you're paying that kind of money to have a studio, is fantastic.
You've got like the heavily insulated walls.
But it's overkill, I think, at some point for a podcast. Where we, if you're just recording an album or something like that, that's great to have the studio.
Right.
I'm not sure that we need it for the podcast.
Again, it's a resources thing, right? Like we could
Where
spend
do we
that money,
spend
or
our
we could
resources?
spend money on other stuff. We can do a lot of things with that money. So you're absolutely right. But 70% of people think it's at least pretty good.
Okay.
Sound
and
not too bad. And finally, you made me throw a question. And
this would be fun.
So I was worried. I send this off to both Ross and Adam and go like, anything else you guys want to add in here? Let's not make it too long because people don't like filling out long surveys. I know this. I have a customer service background. You want to do. He's like, who's usually right, Adam or Terrence or neither is what you said.
Yeah.
You were like, is it and then I just wrote in there. So I wrote who is usually right. The first choice is Adam. The second choice is Terrence. And the third choice is a trained chimpanzee could do better. And I was snap calling Chimp to win it all. I figured we'd get like 10% of the vote each.
Right.
The breakdown. Drum roll, please.
You can't wait to announce this, I'm sure.
Adam. People thought Adam was correct 21% of the time. People think...
No, 21% of the people thought Adam was correct.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, 21% of the people thought Adam was usually right.
Yeah.
48% of the people think I'm usually right, which is mind-blowing. And
Double.
25% voted for the Chimp. So
I did not beat the Chimp.
You did not beat the Chimp. Wah, wah. Do we have a sad sounding, like, wah, wah kind of thing going on for...
That is correct.
Yeah. That's the one I knew we had something
the
like
fail horn.
So
nice.
Don't let it go to my... People are doing a very bad job of not letting it go to my head.
All right, that was some fun. So like Terrence said,
thanks for voting.
Thanks for everybody for getting in there. If you want to get in there and give us some feedback, please do.
It's all anonymous.
Please do.
It is at the 2+2 PokerCast forums. It's stick it up at the top, link to the survey.
Yep.
Let's get into some in case you missed it.
Sure.
How did he miss the open goal? 6x4, and he comes up 0. Oh, no!
Oh, yes! He missed it!
He's missed it! How on earth did he miss that?
Did you guys see that post in the thread this week from, I think it was Xander Ween?
No.
He's like, Ross, I want your voice back on
I
the
did
start
see
of the
that one.
Oh, because
I didn't even notice that you had edited that part out. Until I read that post, because it used to go, and now it's like you're doing like this. You're trying to do this booming voice where it's like in time for in case you missed it. You cut that out, huh?
All right, in case you missed it.
Thanks, Xander Ween.
2015 Poker Hall of Fame nominees were announced today on the World Series of Poker.com website. This is the Poker Hall of Fame. We've talked about this. It's probably well known that we don't love this, how it works and how it's decided on who gets into this thing. But we wouldn't be doing our job.
Fan. You're mistaken.
Yeah. We wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't talk about this. So let's go over the list of 10 nominees. Chris Bjorn has been on. Well, we'll go through them in a second. I'll just read them off. Chris Bjorn, David Chu, Bruno Fatoussi, Jennifer Harmon, John Jawanda, which is funny right after he wins an EPT main event, Carlos Mortensen, Max Pescatori, Terry Rogers, Matt Savage, and David Devilfish Ulliott. What did you make of the list, Steve?
I mean, obviously, we don't have to rehash the size stuff over and over again. But I mean, I think it's a fine list. One thing that was pointed out many times was that I think like 5 or 6 Europeans.
6 Europeans is a big change for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's
because it's typically been very American-centric.
It is, and for them to have 6 and the people that they have on there is interesting. Chris Bjorn has been 4 of them are new, right? Max Pescatori, Terry Rogers,
David Ulliott,
and Matt Savage are new to the list. Chris Bjorn and Jennifer Harman have been on the list for the last 4 years.
I did not know that. That's really
made it. Yeah.
I mean, I know Jennifer Harman's been nominated before. I mean, she's always like perennially the one that's sort of talked about. That always get in. I didn't know Chris Bjorn has been on there 4 straight years.
Exactly. The criteria again: a player must have played against acknowledged top competition, be a minimum of 40 years old at time of nomination, played for high stakes, played consistently well, gaining the respect of peers, and stood the test of time. For non-players, contributed to the overall growth and success of the game in poker with indelible positive and lasting results.
Oh yeah, and not indicted by the DOJ is apparently one of those.
That seems to be one of the main ones.
Yeah.
Or will actually show up to the... It's funny, they have... They also have a thing where they say we expect the person to show up for the ceremony.
Yeah, it is expected that the inductees are representative of the inductee will be able to attend the induction. I guess it's representative if they're dead.
Right.
But yeah, we're not voting you into the Hall of Fame.
If you're not coming.
If you're not coming. It's like we're not inviting you to the party.
It's so petty. It's just insane.
Yeah.
So if you look at those... who would there's going to be two every year.
Yeah.
Their weird system of they send out ballots to the 23 living Hall of Fame members and 16-person media panel all get ballots and vote into, and then I guess the two.
Not us.
No, we're not ever going to be.
So 16. So that's 39 humans, and I guess.
But
do all of those people vote for one person?
I think they vote for 2.
They vote for 2, and 2 of them will get in. Okay.
2 of them get in.
Okay. So the top two vote get in.
Yeah.
So I guess it's who deserves to get in, and
versus who is going to get in.
Yeah, who is going to get in versus who deserves to get in. I think it's more interesting to talk about who I think will get in. So because that is really interesting to me. Devilfish is obviously going to pick up a ton of sentimental votes.
Yeah.
I would have to think he's probably one of the favorites. And you just mentioned John Jawanda. Recency bias kind of suggests that because when he just wins a major event, it's kind of like, oh yeah, John Jawanda's done a lot, and of course it's absolutely true. And then I think, we talked about Chris Bjorn and Jennifer Harman, not getting in for 4 years straight. I think there's always a lot of feeling around. I don't know what the word is, but people are like, oh, well, this person, it sucks to be this person get in. So I would kind of make Jen Harman, Jawanda, and Devilfish sort of the favorites. Like if I were kind of to put up a betting market on this, based on that. Now, I don't know who the 23 living Hall of Fame members are. I mean, I could probably name like 8 of them.
Right.
But so they're really valuable. But I would guess the media at least would go towards me. I mean, I'm part of the media, I suppose. I'm certainly closer to media than I am of a member of the Hall of Fame. So I know a lot more of those people. So that's my. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think I'm in the ballpark?
I think you hit it on the head in the fact that 23 living Hall of Fame members are going to vote. These people are not, they're older, right?
Yeah.
They've been around the game for a long time. Their votes are going to be skewed to people that have been around a long time, and I think specifically skewed to Jennifer Harman. I think
makes sense because they've all played with her.
Yep, yeah. And I think she's going to have a pretty big. I think she's going to get voted by a bunch of them. I also think that. Well, let's go through them. Like Chris Bjorn. He's been there 4 years. I don't think he's gonna be one of the nominees. David Chu, I think the same thing. Bruno is interesting. I think Bruno has a decent shot. Daniel Negreanu was rallying for him, among others. Last year when he was talking about all the stuff that he's done in France.
Yeah, certainly.
Not just a player, a builder, right?
Yeah. Certainly, yeah. I mean, there's 2 guys on here or 3 guys, I guess. Terry Rogers too, and Matt Savage would be considered in the builder category.
But then I was going to get to Matt, and I think that if you asked if this was just. If the people voting on it were mostly media or mostly people that are in sort of the more current contemporary people in the game, I think Matt Savage would be the first. The guy who gets the most votes. I'm not sure that that's going to be the case with some of the older guys that are voting on, that are casting their votes. So, but I think if I had to bet, I would say Devilfish because of the sentimental stuff that he's gone into. He's been around for a long time. A lot of those people that are going to be voting and have known him for a long time, and Jennifer Harman. So the two I would bet are Harman and Devilfish if I had to
I think so. So yeah, you and me, we both kind of independently came up to that. Now, in terms of merit, I think you nailed it. I mean, I think Savage has done so much for this, and we're biased because we're friends with the guy, we like the guy, and obviously he's the one out of this entire group. He's the one that I've interacted with by far.
Well, and we've been rallying for him for a while.
Yeah,
I mean, we've been saying it on the show for a couple of years.
But the fact remains, he's done a lot. I mean, very very few people have done really more for poker in the last handful of years in terms of standardizing and all this stuff. It's
promotion. I mean, just promoting the game.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like Jess Wellman had a tweet shortly after this stuff came out, and she said something like, the Poker Hall of Fame is, Okay, I'll read it right now. I've got it up. Here's my annual reminder that while contributing to the growth of the game is great, Hall of Famers are, by and large, to recognize on-field performance. And I think she's right in more traditional sports.
Exactly.
Right? Like, so if if you're talking about the Football Hall of Fame, like, Joe Montana or somebody like that is Joe Namath is more important than somebody who's been the owner of a team for a long time or an important commissioner or something like that, because these are the people that you really think of. They're synonymous with the game. But when you talk about something like poker, it's a much more democratic game, right? So like football or hockey or whatever, it's only the people on the field, and then the elite 1% make some big distinction. They make a big impression, and it's watched by millions and millions and millions. Whereas poker is a game that's participated in by millions and watched by relatively few. Right? It's sort of the inverse effect. So somebody like Matt Savage has an impact on everybody, listening to the show, everybody who kind of sets foot in a casino and plays poker here in the year 2015. Whereas, David Chu, for as great a poker player as he is, for as much as he's done for a long time, I don't know what he's, how is David Chu's existence affected mine or yours or sort of anybody else's, right?
If that's the criteria. Yeah, it's
exactly.
Interesting, yeah.
But Savage, I think, gets it on merit. I think from the players, the person whose resume I think I'm most impressed with out of that group is probably John Jawanda.
Poker player?
Yeah, in terms of just the players, I mean, the guy's got an incredible resume. Tournaments, been a winner in cash games. Max Pescatore is certainly up there. I mean, he's picked up 5 bracelets now. I think now. Very impressive career, and then he's also in a in a market that is not. I mean, John Jawan is from Indonesia, but most people consider him American. Pescatore is definitely one of the most well-known, most successful European players for a very long time now.
Seems like he's in his prime, though. It's kind of weird to be talking about nominee. This guy just picked up a bracelet. He's won them a lot recently. Like, he just kind of...
Yeah, I mean, again, this is another weird thing about the Poker Hall of Fame is that, in traditional sports, your people who are in the Hall of Fame have been retired. I mean, I think most Hall of Fames even have, a rule, right? Like, you have to have been retired for X number of years to even be eligible.
Yeah, I think that guy was trying to pull me over for another speeding ticket.
Yeah, probably. You're typing too fast or something like that. But yeah, that's not the case for poker because there's nothing. I mean, unless they die, they can always continue playing poker.
Exactly. Strange. Okay, so that's going to wrap up we'll see who gets. I think they announced it right at the final table, the November 9. I'm guessing. There's the pomp and circumstance before, and they introduced him there.
Bruce Buffer.
And Bruce Buffer approach, yes, indeed. So, but also that has nothing to do with, of course, the much more important hallowed ground of the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame, which we're going to be talking about in the second segment. We'll get to this week's inductee. In case you missed it, the executive director of the Michigan Gaming Control Board says he believes that daily fantasy sports wagering is illegal in Michigan. It's a big deal because Michigan is 10 million people. That's not a small state. I think it's 10th in terms of population. It's a big chunk of people. To talk to us about it is the main dude over at LegalSportsReport.com. Of course, he's our old friend Chris Grove. Chris, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Is that what your business card says? Main dude, right? That's what
that
it
says. It does. Capital M, capital D.
Does your assistant have a title that's lowercase?
Second dude.
Second dude. Minor dude.
Minor dude. Yeah. All right, let's get to this, Chris. Pretty big deal, right? I think I know that there was 5 other states that daily fantasy sports companies were not in. This is a big one when you talk about Michigan.
It's a big one when you talk about Michigan, both because of the reason that you already stated, population, but also because this was not necessarily a state that was on the radar as a quote-unquote trouble state. So you'll hear people talk about Tennessee because of certain aspects of state gambling law there. You'll hear people talk about Florida as a possible state where DFS could run into issues if there was an overly interested attorney general. But Michigan was not really a state that was ever on the radar as a trouble state. So the fact that the Gaming Control Board head has come out and said this is certainly putting a lot of sites on notice and raising questions about whether other states with gambling laws similar to Michigan are now going to be looking at this issue more closely.
Yeah, it's got to put a bunch of fear in some of these companies when it was assumed that this is a carve-out in the UIGA, that fantasy sports are going to be okay, and then one of these guys from a gaming control board says, "Hang on a second, that's fine federally, but state by state, it's maybe not so fine."
Right, and that's always been the question surrounding daily fantasy sports. UIGEA, as you said, is one thing. There's a clear exemption there, but that exemption is very specifically for UIGEA and activities that might be covered under that particular federal law. When you get to the state level, you are talking about a patchwork of 50 laws that diverge, that treat different forms of gambling in different ways, and then adding to the complexity is not only do they diverge on that level, but they also diverge on the next level of enforcement, where the priorities are, what the AG is interested in, what the politicians in that state or the constituencies within that state are interested in. So it really does come down to a matter of opinion and priorities on some level. Those are very subjective factors, and at that point you have to be starting to get nervous as a DFS operator if it seems like some of those subjective factors are starting to turn the other way.
Do you think it's a case of the guy, I believe it's Rick Kalm is his name, he's the executive director of the Michigan Gaming Control Board. I wonder if he's just kind of looking for clarity, where he sees, this is his thing that he overlooks, and he sees DFS exploding, ads all over the place, the NFL starting this week, and I read that DraftKings was the single biggest spender of ads this week in the run-up to the NFL season in the U.S. On the sports television. So I wonder if he just kind of thinks, hey, we've got this thing, we need clarity. And I understand the same thing happened in Kansas last year where the guy said similar things, and then they just passed a law to make DFS okay. So maybe this is just the same thing, or is everybody kind of worried that a lot of these laws aren't going to get passed in these individual states?
That's certainly a possibility, the scenario you're describing. There was also a bill introduced prior to these comments in Michigan that sought to create a specific exemption for daily fantasy sports in regard to state gambling law in Michigan. So it could certainly be that those things are happening in concert, that officials are raising their hand and saying, we need clarity, and then legislatures are going to respond by giving them that clarity. The thing to watch out for, though, is even though that might be a tidy package within a given state, so you have a regulator in Michigan raise their hand, ask for clarity, the legislature responds, that may work out all fine and well in Michigan, but what isn't as clear is what kind of questions and scenarios it will give rise to in other states. And that's the real unpredictable part here, is not so much what happens in Michigan, although that is important and it's far from determined at this point, but what kind of activity does this spark in other states? What kind of attention does it attract? Who is that attention attracted from, and what are the consequences of that attention? I think that this is not the last we're going to hear of this story, even if it does resolve within Michigan in a way that's favorable to the industry.
It really highlights how strong states' rights are when it comes to gambling within the U.S. We talk about a poker federal bill for years and years and years, and even if that somehow got through, you look at this and you go, wow, the states actually have all the power.
They do, and when you talk about something like UIGEA, what a lot of people don't always appreciate is the broader context. A law like the UIGEA, it requires a violation at the state level or some other federal law in order to be triggered. The same is true for IGBA. The same is true for a variety of federal statutes that have to deal with gambling. They do look to the states for that initial violation to occur and then are triggered by that violation, because it is still by and large at the state level where gambling law is made. Now, of course, there are significant exceptions to that, most notably with sports betting, and then we've talked before about the rest Restoration of America's Wire Act and how that would also pose some questions that these issues are intersecting with. But yeah, by and large, the states are where these laws are made, and each state does have a pretty unique, a pretty idiosyncratic approach to gambling law.
PokerStars reacted quickly. They pulled their DFS product, Stars Draft, out of Michigan.
Right.
But it's interesting because Stars has other issues to think about than FanDuel and DraftKings, et cetera, do.
Absolutely. I mean, PokerStars, this is a situation where all Amaya is thinking about is how do we minimize risk. If you're DraftKings, if you're FanDuel, you have to be thinking about Michigan as a source of liquidity, as a source of acquisition, as a source of continuing that growth story. That is just not the game that Amaya is playing with DFS, especially when you're talking about the U.S. market. Amaya just has to, their mantra is avoid risk at all costs because there is so much more on the line for them in terms of the broader revenue picture than DFS. DFS is a rounding error for those guys at this point. So there simply is going to be no risk taken on whatsoever in the service of goals that might be very important, perhaps even existential, to a FanDuel or DraftKings.
The other thing I found interesting was Stars Draft also made it known that they weren't going to be in Canada, which is surprising to a lot of us in Canada who kind of think that the laws are sort of laid back and not something that people are really too concerned with. But Stars, again, as you mentioned, are not interested in a bunch of risk. But it's strange because they still offer PokerStars in Canada, given that that might be more of a problem than DFS.
That is an interesting one. I think perhaps, and this is just speculation, there may be a situation where currently Amaya is in negotiations with provincial governments about being involved in the offering of a regulated product and is not interested in creating any tension around the fringes of those negotiations. That certainly is one explanation. It could be that from their view, this product too closely hews to sports betting and perhaps crosses a line that they're not necessarily interested in crossing with that suite of products. But you're right. The general reaction to that aspect of the story was confusion, and I don't think I've seen an explanation advanced publicly that has, well, in fact, I don't think I've seen any explanation advanced publicly. I certainly haven't seen one that's gotten everyone nodding their heads and saying, okay, well, now I understand.
That makes sense.
Why it went down that way. So if you see one of those, let me know.
We will indeed.
Chris, I'm sure that you've asked, you've reached, I think your article mentioned that you've reached out to FanDuel and DraftKings and they haven't responded to you. Do you have any sort of, temperature, any update on whether those companies will continue to operate in Michigan, and how long do you think they would continue to? Are people in Michigan who make a living playing this stuff, should they be looking at condos in Iowa or whatever?
This is going to be one of those interesting wedges. There are already a few of those in daily fantasy sports. There's the wedge of NASCAR, do you or don't you? There's the wedge of golf, do you or don't you? There are some other states also that are a matter of dispute. Some sites will offer, some won't. And Michigan is going to become another one of those issues that the industry is going to line up on two sides of. As you mentioned, Stars Draft is on the no side, at least for now. I know Draft Ops has also declined to continue to accept action from Michigan. I believe Star Fantasy League added their name to that list today as well. And Mark Edelman, who follows these issues pretty closely, suggested on Twitter earlier this morning that there was about to be a wave of additions to the list of sites that were blocking Michigan. I do think there will remain sites on the other side of the issue, and I think FanDuel and DraftKings are likely to be among them. If they felt good about their legal opinion prior to these comments by Michigan regulators, they still feel good about their legal opinion following those comments, and they're still probably willing to risk continued operation and to mount whatever challenge they need to in the meantime. And they're probably also looking to the legislation that would clarify this activity as a legal activity, and reasoning that if they pursue that track and also maintain their legal opinion, strengthen their legal opinion, that they can avoid any long-term exposure. So Long way to put it. Here's the summary. I think we will see more sites exit, but I do not believe that FanDuel and DraftKings will be among them simply because the risk for them, the precedent that it sets, the amount of money on the line, it's all too great.
So if those sites are still offering the product in Michigan, then players basically don't really have anything to worry about. It's not like they're going to go after, individual DFS players playing.
Yeah, we're not going to have a Black Friday-like situation.
Yeah. I would be surprised. We're not talking about the same sort of situation because the flow of money isn't predicated on the same kind of deception. That was the real issue in a lot of ways with Black Friday, and that's where the bottleneck also then immediately arose, and obviously in many ways what gave birth to the internal situation with Full Tilt in the first place. The conditions here aren't the same, but again, it's also not as if we're talking about a fully regulated product either, right? This isn't your PokerStars account in the UK. So it's a product that exists somewhere in between those two. It's somewhere on that spectrum, exactly where, I don't know that I'm actually qualified to say, and it's certainly a determination that everyone needs to make individually where they think it is and how comfortable they are with that risk.
The site is legalsportsreport.com if you're interested in following these things, onlinepokerreport.com as well if you're following the online legislation. Chris Grove, thanks so much for your time, sir.
All right, guys. Until next time.
In case you missed it, Patrick Antonius did an interview with Poker Listings this week, that touches on some interesting topics, to say the least. Patrick, obviously is an interesting guy.
Guy who's probably going to get in the Poker Hall of Fame one day.
You would think. You mean the Internet Poker's Hall of Fame or the Poker Hall of Fame?
I like his chances in ours
the real
better
one.
Than his. The real.
Oh, really?
One before. No. Ours is the real one.
Oh, I see.
The one that counts.
Yes.
The one that counts. Not that sham of a thing that they have.
That they actually do over there.
The wall on 2+2. The one that really.
He's got a pretty good shot of making it. Yeah, at some point.
Considering we induct somebody every week too, that helps.
Yeah, exactly. He lives in Monaco. He's still there. He said he spends a lot of time. Hasn't been to Macau in a couple of years. He talks about traveling to some tournaments. Berlin upcoming, Malta, the EPT Grand Final, of course. In his home backyard there in Monaco. When asked why he hadn't played very much poker, he responded by saying the big cash games he is playing or was playing in dried up. So I thought that was interesting because he's not talking about Macau. He's talking about private games that we don't generally hear about ever. So this is sort of the first thing that tells us that even those games are drying up. He continued with in Macau. The games moved more and more into private games, and the game in Vegas wasn't the same anymore either.
Right.
Suddenly there was no more game in London and nothing in Monaco, so I stepped back and cut down on poker.
So you're just living the life on the Riviera.
Yeah.
That's all.
Just focusing on being really, really ridiculously good looking.
And rich and good at tennis and his family and everything. The interviewer then asks, what happened to your online poker? We really missed the times when you and Tom Dwan were sitting there throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars around. He answers, it's a little sad, but it looks like the technology has advanced so much that it's become a totally different game. Nowadays, players use software that give them so much information and so much data that has become more a game of numbers. I never used any of these programs. I never used technology to get an edge. I'm more of a field player who's living in the moment, but the players today know what they're doing. They're basing their play on the software that tells them to do so. Feels like you're playing... They're basing their play on what the software tells them to do, so it feels like you're playing against a computer these days. If you don't use poker software, it's not a fair game anymore, but I still like to play mixed games. And the interviewer says there's no tracking software for these games, meaning the mixed games. And Patrick says, well, I'm sure some of the smart people are already working on it, and there will be programs for stud poker or heads up deuce to 7 triple draw. As much as I know limit hold'em is now basically solved, I actually had to quit Hold'em and PLO online. I lost about $1 million straight, and then I realized I couldn't beat the ring games anymore, and that was largely due to tracking software. I would take my chances against any high-stakes player live, but online I don't like my chances anymore, unfortunately. So, a lot of interesting stuff in there, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's a very similar reason. I choose to play mixed games because I don't have a whole lot on that top. I don't have a lot.
You didn't
of
grow up
available,
with using HUDs and
it's just and Well, I mean, I had Poker Tracker for a long time. I was definitely an early adopter of that stuff, but I don't have it now. I don't really know what it is now, and I wouldn't have the database anyway, right? Like, so because the people who, you have to have the database to be able to make all that stuff useful, right? So, but I enjoy mixed games, and I also think that mixed games, they're just more. It's just much less advanced of a game. I mean, you're talking about people who have played well into the 7 digits of No Limit Hold'em and PLO hands, but I mean, how many people have played like 3 million hands of stud high low or of no limit deuce or of most of those games? Very, very few, relatively few, and certainly very few really great at all the games. So yeah, I mean, mixed games is still sort of the haven for people who are kind of bot fearful, HUD fearful, whatever it is, but still kind of want to play poker. So it's kind of understandable he would play that.
Yeah, when he says I lost 1 million straight and then realized that I couldn't beat the ring game anymore, I thought that was interesting because lots of times he had like $500,000 on the table, right?
Yeah.
Like, how many buy-ins is $1 million that he's playing PLO?
Yeah.
Ross and I were talking about before the show.
True. That is a good point. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, like $1 million sounds like a lot, but
it's not that. If you're playing like 2-400, it's
how does he attribute that?
I mean, yeah, if he's playing like a quarter 50, then yeah,
that's
quite a bit.
He's not, and Tony's isn't playing 25-50. I mean, I'd be shocked if he was.
Yeah, it's interesting that he said $1 million straight and picked that as the number, like you'd expect 5 million.
But maybe it was just sort of a bunch of thoughts that he was,
he may not be feeling it anyway. I mean, like here's the thing, like I feel like if he were really committed to poker, then he probably would still be able to do it, or still, or he would, engage himself in, getting a HUD or all these kind of stuff. But it probably kind of feels like he's fallen out of love with it to some extent anyway.
Seems like it. Amazing that he never used a HUD or Poker Tracker for so long and did so well for so long.
I think many people did. I mean, I think many people who never had that technology were able to do so. Now it's obviously getting extremely hard.
Mm-hmm. All right, in case you missed it, WSOP.com in Nevada now takes PayPal, which I thought was, it's not a huge story, but it's a pretty big step.
For how long that PayPal was involved, like when I first started working at PokerStars, we took PayPal. This would have been 2002. We took PayPal, and then PayPal shut it all down, of course, under pressure from... I can't even remember at this point. Yeah. But basically under governmental pressure that they pulled out entirely. And I think it was actually when eBay bought them that they pulled out. I'm probably wrong about this, but anyway, and then that opened the door for NetTeller to exist, and subsequently, Skrill and Moneybookers and so on. And now it's kind of come full circle back to the first major e-wallet, which is PayPal. So yeah, I think it's certainly interesting, PayPal's stance, because they've always been very, very, very anti-gambling. I can even tell you a story about, like, I have a friend who sold a package on 2+2 or wherever he was. He sold a package, so he obviously had many people sending him money. Some of them were through PayPal, and then the vast majority of them were fine. And then one guy put in the notes, the little comment field, like, good luck, go get him, or something like that. And then PayPal froze that one and froze that guy's account and made him promise, like, oh, you can't use this for gambling because, something says good luck, then I guess presumably it's money for gambling. So that's how...
That means that they scrape the comments.
Oh, yeah, of course they're going to read the comments. Yeah, like...
but not one person's not sitting there reading them. They've built some sort of software
to
scrape
like good luck or whatever is easy enough one to do. But yeah. And this wasn't that long ago, as I recall. So, very, very interesting that they seem fine with it now.
So Visa, MasterCard, they've been, the legalized sites, the regulated sites have had trouble convincing, Visa, MasterCard that they're doing something legal within the law.
Right. Specifically the issuers of the banks. But yeah, I mean, banks are very
super careful.
Conservative, stoic institutions. Like, I mean, imagine trying to go to the CEO at like Wells Fargo or Bank of America and explaining to them that WSOP.com poker is different from Bovada poker, right? Like imagine the steps that you would need to take to get in front of that guy and make that case that their bank card should accept WSOP.com, but not like Bovada or America's Card Room or whatever it is, right? Like it's like you would never get a meeting with that person, and you wouldn't be able to explain it even if you did.
And even if you did, the lawyers would say,
"Yeah,
guess what? No, I don't care.
There's no reason.
It's not worth it to us."
Exactly. There's not much value in it. So
we make such a small amount of money from it, and we risk our everything.
Right.
It makes no sense.
And PayPal is obviously a big, huge company as well, but they're a new company, a younger company. It's a technology company. It's a little bit more on the cutting edge. It's a little bit easier to explain to them the difference.
Yeah, exactly. You saw a tweet from
Jimmy Fricke had like the best tweet on that. He said you can now use PayPal to fund at WSOP.com. In other news, use your American Express at your local Blockbuster and get a free VHS rental. Which that's like an A-level tweet. It would have been an A+, like if instead of American Express he used like Diners
Club.
Yeah, I was like Diners. Like, do you remember that Diners Club card?
I think it's still out there.
I'm sure there are people with Diners Club cards out there. Yeah. What was the deal behind that? I don't even remember. Like,
it's just a credit card that they picked a name from. Yeah, who knows? All right, so that's good news. Like I said, I don't think it was a huge story or anything, but I thought it was kind of an interesting step that PayPal had jumped on board. Good to see. We are sponsored. We have a live training site sponsor. This is CrushLivePoker.com, run by our old friend, Mr. Bart Hansen. He's going to teach you how to beat the live cash games. Tons and tons of stuff at his site. If you're a live cash game player, you're going to get your membership over millions of times if you play a bunch of poker. Just
millions?
No, thousands of times. So you want me to be exact? 4,239 times.
I guess if you play small enough, maybe it's millions.
I guess.
I would play big enough.
You're going to get your value out of it, is what I'm trying to say. Fantastic stuff over there at his site. He does a poker strategy minute for us each week. This week it is Roscoe.
This week it's a secret.
It's a super.
Or it's not a secret. It's unknown as of right now.
You didn't stall long enough, Adam. You didn't stall long
for
enough.
you to send an email to Bart to ask him.
I haven't talked to him about it yet.
CrushLivePoker.com. This is going to be your strategy minute.
It's going to be good.
Ross
it's going to help you.
It's definitely going to help you. Listen to this fine segment by Mr. Bart Hansen. You're listening to the 2+2 PokerCast presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. More right after this.
Hey everybody, welcome to another 2+2 Strategy Minute brought to you by CrushLivePoker.com. I'm Bart Hansen, and this week I want to talk about fast playing the nut flush. I think when people flop the nut flush, it's probably the hand that gets slow played the most. And I think that's a big mistake when you often slow play the nut flush for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you suddenly wake up on a later street, whether you're the pre-flop raiser or you're a player in the field, people with second-best hands maybe even as strong as the second nut flush, will suddenly go into a check-calling shell against you. But if you fast play the nut flush, especially if you get money in early, not only does it build the pot up, but you get so much action from other hands that will play big pots with you. One of the things you have to realize is that when a monotone board comes out, you're not going to get a ton of action unless somebody flopped the flush along with you, or a set, or to a lesser extent, two pair. So why get those players off the hook if you don't fast play your hand when that would be the best way to maximize your value? Now let's get back to the PokerCast.
Hey folks, don't forget to stay connected with the PokerCast gang between shows. There's a dedicated forum on 2plus2.com where you can discuss the most recent show, request a guest, suggest topics. The PokerCast forum on 2+2. Picks or get the F out.
At the 8-handed table, UTG min raises to 8K with 32 big blind effective. Cutoff calls with 70 big blinds, and I call with 10-9 of spades on the button with a stack of 400K. Both blinds fold. Flop comes Jack 8-6 rainbow with 1 spade. UTG bets 14K, cutoff calls, and I overcall. The turn is the ace of spade, giving me a flush draw. UTG keeps on betting, 32K this time. Cutoff calls again, and I raise to 90K. After tanking for a few minutes, UTG lets it go. Cutoff takes even longer before folding too.
Team Pro Online's Marc-Andre French Dog Ladouceur is a Supernova Elite VIP.
This is the 2+2 PokerCast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club.
Hey, poker fans, don't forget about the 2plus2.com digital magazine. Each month, a wide array of poker professionals and media write fascinating articles about the game you love. Want to learn about big blind versus small blind hand ranges? How about optimal Jeopardy daily double strategy? Topics like those and many others are covered every month. Head on over to 2plus2.com to see what the magazine has to offer this month.
Hey, it's Mike from the 2plus2 store and ProfessionalPoker.com. 2plus2 is pleased to announce the release of their most anticipated book in ages, Applications of No Limit Hold'em, a guide to understanding theoretical sound poker by Matthew Jonda. This book will give you the ability to create the bet sizings and ranges which will beat the better players. The theory in this book is not designed to be complex or abstract, but rather it's intended to be applied immediately, producing better overall results. Many confusing concepts, such as overbetting, balancing multiple bet sizing ranges, donk betting, and check raising as a preflop raiser, are crucial to a player's strategy, despite few players implementing them or talking about them. And after reading this book, you should be able to not only conceptually understand these ideas, but also know how to begin incorporating them into your game, and thereby successfully compete against tough opponents. And at the 2plus2 store, we accept all credit cards, plus PayPal and NetTeller.
Hey guys, this is Bart Hansen for CrushLivePoker.com. Whether you're a recreational player who wants to compete at the tables, or you're a professional and you want to increase your win rate, the material that I've produced at CrushLivePoker.com will make you a better poker player. Act now and you can subscribe for free by using the coupon code TPC11. That's TPC for the PokerCast11 and get your first month free.
Presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. No guests this week, T, but we've got a bunch of stuff to get to. The Internet Poker's Wall of Fame is picking up some steam here. We're getting some stuff was written about. If you,
the real Hall of Fame, even though it's not a hall, it's a
wall of Fame. Yes, but we got a bunch of responses and stories written about it when we put Isai up on the wall.
Yeah.
The second installment last week, who joined us, Prahlad Friedman, of course, Spirit Rock, back from the olden days of online poker.
Yeah, it was a great blast from the past. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was fun, indeed. We took some heat from another poker podcast. I don't know that you listen to, but I do. PokerFraudAlert.com is
Todd went after us?
Todd had a run at us for not grilling Spirit Rock on the fact that he became an ambassador for UB, etc.
Oh.
But, that wasn't the context of the interview. We were having him on because we had he was being put up on the Wall of Fame for his playing days. So, but, I understand how some people think that everybody should be held up against the wall and for things that they do, but it wasn't really what the interview was designed for. But respect the opinion nonetheless, like his show as well. All right, so the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame. I don't have a clue. We're going back and forth here.
Well, I certainly hope that the person I'm about to induct hasn't done anything wrong. Otherwise, I'm going to get it wrong. I don't know. I tried to do my homework on this one.
All right. Before we induct them.
Okay.
Internet Poker.
Love it.
All right.
Fantastic drop. All right.
So let's add to Isai and Prahlad.
Who's going up on the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame this week, Mr. Terrence Chan?
This week, I'm inducting a founder and a builder of the game.
Ah.
This man was a serious amateur poker player who founded a business out of his passion for poker, brought many new players to poker through his business, and made himself a multimillionaire in the process. His company was recently acquired, and he has, at least to our knowledge, exited the poker world.
Look what I have on today.
As a relatively behind-the-scenes guy, this founder-CEO is not a major household name, but his mark on the online poker world continues to be felt well after his exit. But you say, Terrence, you inducted Isai Scheinberg 2 weeks ago already.
Or it's all builders.
And you'd be right. The third induction into the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame, I give you Dominic Kofort. Dominic Kofort is the founder of PokerStrategy.com. For those living in North America, PokerStrategy is not a huge deal. It's not even a site that I personally am very familiar with. I'm not a member there, and the most time I've spent on the site was researching this induction. But it's a juggernaut of online poker.
Yes,
it is the highest Alexa rank of any poker site I've been able to find. It has over 1 billion page views, which is more than 2+2, more than PokerStars itself. It's unquestionably the most successful affiliate site in the history of poker.
Yeah.
They are particularly responsible for the growth of poker in Germany and Russia, producing legions of absurdly good players from those two countries. PokerStrategy has millions of users and operates in 12 different languages. Their affiliate system was brilliantly different from any other before it. In contrast with the 99.9% of affiliates out there who are just attempting to get site traffic, as much site traffic as possible, as many bells and whistles trying to churn players through, they actually decided to teach players how to play poker as they provided them with free money to play. And a tremendously high percentage of those signups end up as lifetime grinders paying tons of rake and lining the pockets of Mr. Kofort. To its detractors, PokerStrategy impact is not all positive. It has been a
short
factory.
Stacking. People were saying the short stacking issue, right?
Absolutely. It's been a factory of multi-tabling grinders and superstars, introducing relatively few fish because of that exact business model I just mentioned. Some would argue that its lasting impact to contribution is accelerating the difficulty and overfishing of online poker. But in the end, PokerStrategy's impact on the game resonates tremendously, more than many people, including myself, give it credit for. Like I said, I'm not a member of PokerStrategy, but 7 million others, a number, by the way, that includes presumably very little multi-accounting, are. Kofort debuted in 2012 on the Bluff Power 20 in 12th place, falling to number 15 in 2013, the following year. That Kofort was lifted behind people like Ray Lesniak and Franklin Lorenzo Fertitta, who are only relevant in one U.S. state, shows how little this juggernaut was truly appreciated. After all, PokerStrategy had more members than there are, in fact, legal adults available to play poker in either Nevada or New Jersey. Kofort sold the company he built in 2013 for 38.3 euros, $50 million US, if you like.
38.3 million, yeah.
Yep. In 2013, shortly after the Bluff Power 20 the ranking that I mentioned, the announcement listed its profits as 19.5 euros. I don't know if there's
19.5 million.
19.5 million euros, excuse me. I don't know if there's many people out there who have made that kind of money from internet pokers, but if there are, we likely know their names. And when it comes to Dominic Kofort, now, if you don't know, now you know.
Nice. Interesting. I didn't know a lot of that stuff that you said, and when you talk about the Bluff Power 20...
It took me hours to do that.
Yeah.
Good job. Because the guys don't really that out there.
What alerted you to look more into it?
I brainstormed this like a really, really long time, and then I sort of thought, well, okay, there's obviously other candidates for people who made poker sites. So, eventually the founders...
Don't spoil.
Sure, but...
I know who you're talking about.
Founders of various other online poker sites that are relevant, but... they're so small compared to stars that I kind of wanted to go in a different direction. And what's another category? You nailed players. You picked a player last week and a founder of a poker site. So I didn't want to go retread either of those two general categories. So I thought, well, what else has been huge to online poker?
Driving
affiliates.
People, yeah.
Exactly. It's affiliates. What else has created a bunch of poker players? And there's a lot of people who I guess, in terms of sheer fame level, they're like, Kofort's not even in the top 200 of famous people who have played one hand of online poker or famous. But how many people have been more successful at what they did and did it almost entirely through online poker?
Yeah.
Right. It's just so.
I think the only other affiliate you can look to that is anywhere close to that would be Poker News, and Tony G, and what he did,
and he'll get in for surely.
I would think at some point
we'll get in. Tony G was the one, and I almost sort of at the last minute thought, well, is Tony G more of that because he is more famous, he is more well known, but PokerStrategy drove so many players. It's responsible for so many of the internet superstars and now live. Somebody like Martin Rettenmeier,
all the
like
German
live
crew, the Russians,
superstars, and all the Germans, all the Russians, and it's something that doesn't get that much respect, to the North American audience because most of them, I think, maybe came up through places like 2+2, actually.
Yeah.
But it's hugely influential in Europe, and it probably will continue to be.
So he's German, Dominic?
I assume so, yeah.
So we have a German, is he Canadian or Israeli?
He was born in Lithuania. I don't know what passport he holds, but yeah, he's he immigrated to Canada,
I think he's probably, let's say he's Canadian.
Israeli Canadian.
Israeli Canadian,
yeah.
German, and American so far up on the Wall of Fame.
Yeah, this ain't Doyle's buddies here.
You don't have to have played against Doyle.
Yes.
No. Nice. Interesting. That's a good pick. And we'll continue on.
Oh, I'm so glad I don't have to do that for 2 weeks now.
You don't know, 3 probably.
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, I got 3 weeks to think about this, about the next guy. And
it's like homework.
Hopefully I'll know more about the next one. This one took a lot of work.
Cool. That's a lot of fun. Check out the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame discussion thread if you want to talk about who you would like to see up on the wall. And, of course, the actual Wall of Fame is also...
Maybe we could try to get an interview with him. We didn't have time to do it because you'd mentioned,
It's fun to interview people we throw up.
Exactly. Is it somebody that we could interview? And I was like, man, he's on LinkedIn. Maybe I could get through somehow. Yeah. But I felt like I would probably need somebody to make an introduction. He's an important dude with a lot of money. I don't even know if he's interested in doing the show. But
right.
Yeah, maybe he will. Maybe we'll have him on in the future.
That'd be fun.
To give an acceptance speech.
Indeed. All right. That is your weekly update on the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame. All right, we got some PokerStars stuff to get to, Terrence, but let's do it a little different this week. Usually we're calling over to the Isle of Man.
Well, it is an auspicious occasion.
Wake this poor man up at some ungodly hour, make him stay up till late at night just so he can come on our show. But this week he's joined us in person. Steve, welcome to the recording area of the 2+2 PokerCast.
Thanks. It's a little bit less posh than last time I joined your recording area, but it's nice all the same.
It's
we talked about earlier, the audio quality thing. But yeah, it's we don't spend all the money on the fancy studio. Instead,
that was the last time Steve was in studio was when the announcement came from PokerStars that they had pledged to refund everybody's full tilt balances, right? I think that was the.
So you're here to give everybody more money?
It was the PokerStars balances. It was like May 2011.
Oh, it was the PokerStars balances.
Yeah, okay. It was 2 weeks after Black Friday.
Right.
We were already we're opening cash outs up.
Wow.
So to what do we owe your wonderful presence
for
this
driving
time?
and coming to Vancouver?
I don't want to make promises about forever, but this will be the last appearance for me on the PokerCast for the foreseeable future.
All right, so
changing roles.
Changing roles within PokerStars?
Yeah, so I don't really have anything to do with the operation of the poker room or that side of the business anymore. I'm moving into a new role, doing different types of things with the product and.
Can you talk about what those things are? Are they like the super secret laboratory?
Well, I can't get into details yet because I don't know what they are.
Okay. So they're super secret
That's
to you.
That's a good job.
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm doing yet.
Yeah,
awesome.
it's kind of like you've just been signed up for the CIA and you don't know what they're going to send you. Yeah.
Except I've got to figure out where to send myself, so it's even a little more crazy than that, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is that we want to look at different ways we could change the game of poker, or even within some of our other verticals, new game variants. And my role, there's a lot of people working on that type of stuff. Product changes within the company, and I'm just one person. But I'll specifically be looking at partnering with folks working in what you might consider the video game industry, or just generally the games industry, to utilize their expertise in game design to make modifications to poker and other games that we offer.
Cool. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, poker.
So do you still work for PokerStars, or do you work for Amaya, the company? Like, what actually pays the bills?
And how much do you make?
Yeah, exactly. What are the benefits? How many days off?
350.
Nice. 350. You're going to retire then, if this is your last show ever, as the man with the most appearances. By the way, it's not even close. On the 2+2 PokerCast, you are going to be the most frequent guest.
Other than the hosts, right?
Other than the hosts, yeah.
He's probably still been on more than me. I mean, if you add him up, he's probably still got me covered.
Yeah, I would think that's probably true. I would guess maybe 300 or 400 times you've been on the show. Well, no, we've only done this show 370 or 80 times. What is it?
379.
379.
I give myself a solid 200.
Yeah, you're up there over the 200 in the
150
200
to 200, something like that.
Really appreciate it.
Well, what's interesting is that I don't know if have I mentioned on the show before that Steve and I, our kind of career paths have been intertwined in a very interesting way.
Right, because you were both players at the same time.
Well, okay, so we were both players at the same time, but it even goes back farther than that. So I mean, we met originally kind of through mutual friends. We didn't hang out a lot, but we knew each other in sort of the early 2000s. And I, of course, worked for PokerStars 2002 to 2004. Steve at that time was a pro online poker player, original OG making his living at online poker.
Not as OG as Adam.
Not as OG as Adam, but how many are? But Steve came down to Costa Rica on vacation with a couple of our mutual friends, and you came down. You had a good time in Costa Rica, as I recall.
And you couldn't come. You couldn't come as much.
Exactly.
You're supposed to come to the beach with us.
Right.
You had to work.
I had to come.
No,
you guys
that must have killed you.
Well. 4 months later, I was no longer working for PokerStars. I mean, it was really quite influential. I mean, Steve, and we ended up, we went out for drinks for a couple nights, and we ended up talking like a lot. And they were all professional poker players, and they all looked at me like, why aren't you doing this? Like, why,
This is the golden era, don't you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I sort of thought like, well, yeah, I mean, I've got the results myself. I mean, I can look at my own database and my own spreadsheet and say like, yeah, my results are pretty good at poker. Maybe I should do this. These guys are doing it. They were the living example. Steve was one of the guys who was a living example for me to decide to quit my day job and really try to pursue online poker for a living. And by the end of 2004, I was no longer employed by PokerStars, only to find out a couple of years later, Steve's like, hey, can I get a reference from you? Because I'm applying to work for this company. You might be familiar with them.
That was like 5 years later.
It was a few years later.
But it was really funny. Like you were one of the reasons. You were one of the reasons I quit my job, and I was one of the reasons that you ended up getting your applying for.
I was interested in working there. I heard all the positive things you said about it and how great it was. That made a big difference to being willing to go to the Isle of Man. I certainly wouldn't have done that for any other poker company. Yeah, it's fantastic. And now I'm hopefully we're both halfway now, right?
Right.
So now I've got a poker job, but I haven't gone halfway around the world to do it, right? And you are doing some poker things and some whatever you feel like.
Some non-poker things,
fighting people
for sure. Yeah. But I think we're both happy and we're both settled and we're both settling into lives that we'll hopefully enjoy more. But
that's a funny story because
poker will still be a part of it.
Yeah. Because a similar thing happened. Like this is obviously on a smaller scale, but MJ, I remember a couple of months before he decided he was going to not do the show anymore, he said to me, "I'm probably not going to go much past this time." And then I was talking to Terrence online one day, and I'm like, man, it's too bad you're working at that Ultimate Poker place because I need a co-host I'm gonna need a co-host in a couple months. And he goes, hang on, don't fill that spot too quick.
I'm apparently very easily influenced by my friends. Is the moral of the story. So hopefully you guys never persuade me to do anything remarkably stupid.
Yeah. So Steve, I wanted to get your you've spent 5 years in the Isle of Man or so?
5.5.
5.5 years.
A long tour.
Dealing with a lot of the operational sides of PokerStars.
Sure.
When you look back on that time, was it everything you expected it would be? Was it different? What do you look back and think about over those 5.5 years as far as that part of the gig?
I mean, I probably wasn't what I expected it would be before I got there. I mean, I had no idea what to expect working for an online poker company. It was definitely, I don't even remember what it was that was so eye-opening or different, but I remember it was that way, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely, you get a different perspective on things from the company side. I mean, I remember being asked questions in my interview about, how do I think about promotions for recreational players and the VIP program? And I'd been a Supernova
elite, right?
Elite, but I had to be quite honest that before I decided to go for that, I never really paid that much attention to the benefits. So what do you think about the Silver Star or Gold Star benefits? I'd be like,
You'd have to ask somebody who is one.
I don't know, but I'm really sure that I understand what the benefits are, but I've never been one personally, so I've never researched that. And I was applying to be the VIP program manager. optimal. But it turns out I must have projected enough confidence in my logical, my analytical abilities and dedication to get the job. So there's a lot to learn. The business side's quite different. You work in an online poker company, you understand how much it takes, just how much it takes to run that business. The poker is an important part, but it's people-wise, it's the minority of the work when you talk about the marketing and the legal and the technical side, right?
Huge company, right? I mean,
finance,
people
accounting. Go ahead.
Yeah, people look at, like, especially you were a player, Terrence, myself, Ross, even when you're playing on PokerStars, it doesn't occur to you all the intricate things that go into running that company, like all the people's skills, the different jobs that people have. Like, I was actually looking over the job opportunities board at Amaya for PokerStars, looking at some of the things that they're hiring, and there's 90 or 100 odd jobs on there, and you look at them and they're just like, wow, it doesn't occur to you that they would need somebody to do this specific job. It's some intricate job, but this guy is going to go spend his entire day doing this small part of a giant company, right?
Probably is one person on a team of several people that do the same thing.
Do the same thing.
Are, right?
Yeah, it's really strange when you get to a company that size, that all the different things that you need to run it properly. It's interesting. And we mentioned the 200 odd shows that you've done for the PokerCast. Do you remember some of the first shows? Do you remember how it went early in your career?
Yeah, I had a really bad microphone. I remember that.
So I do remember that.
And I was recording them first before I think Mike suggested coming on and doing the live conversation.
Right, that's right.
Improved things a lot. But yeah, I remember taking a little heat in the forums about the poor quality and the poor voice that was terrible for radio and blah blah blah. Can we get Sven the poor Steeler back? I remember all those. But it was good. Took it constructively, and it helped to improve, and it's been good. Yeah, I do remember that it was quite a challenge. The amount of time I remember, I was sitting in my office in my apartment, and I tried everything from recording with a blanket over my head.
Did you really?
Wow. To try to dampen the echo. But I think it turns out that I think somebody suggested this was the problem, and I thought I checked into it and it wasn't. But I think I had two microphones plugged into my computer at the same time, one from my webcam and one from I bought a special Yeti mic.
That'll do it.
And I thought I checked it and it wasn't the problem, but it turns out I'm pretty sure later on I figured out that was killing me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, interesting. I wanted to talk about PokerStars in general. So, there's a lot of 2+2. Everybody thinks they know how to run a poker site, of course, and one of the things that's very sort of out front about PokerStars is the money that they spend on trying to draw new players, right? Sure. I mean, poker is a game that has winning players and rake involved, so there's always money going out the door. This requires new players to come into the ecosystem and either get better or lose money or whatever that ends up happening. You want to keep those players happy and around as long as possible.
Marketing's a reality of any business. You know. There are very few companies out there that manage to have such a spectacular product that it sells itself through word of mouth exclusively, right?
Yeah.
So it's an expense.
Right.
Well, and it's even more important for something like a poker company for all the things that Adam mentioned, right? When people talk about how great Starbucks coffee is, like you don't get a coffee off of somebody else to be able to enjoy a Starbucks coffee. You just keep pumping more money into the Starbucks counter, whereas it's a little bit different, obviously.
You don't require that other person in the equation.
Yeah.
And part of that other equation and part of the money that is spent or that people see is things like the Dream Team. When you have you're trying to get new markets with whether it be Neymar or Rafa Nadal or Cristiano Ronaldo, etc., and accessing the massive social media power that these guys have and to drive traffic. Jason Somerville on Twitch are all examples of things that drive new traffic. And I think people miss a lot of the fact that how important. That's probably costs a lot of money to get those guys and get access to it, but it's really, really important to the ecosystem of a place like PokerStars.
It is very important, although I don't think it's necessarily always true that because of the nature of the economy we always have to bring in fresh blood. That kind of assumes that we're draining people faster than they can afford to be drained, and that's not really the goal. People do naturally churn from using any product over time, right? No,
True.
You can't have 100% retention,
right?
But for people who are losing on PokerStars, it very much can be a lifelong experience for a recreational player.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
You can definitely purchase within your budget, and there's no need to churn. And sometimes people win as well, right?
Sure.
So there's that as well. So I don't. It may be certain cases where that's the case, where people churn inevitably, but I would consider it more just a part of business. You always need to find new customers, and that's true for us as well as true for any other business. There's always some sort of less than 100% retention, so you need a new stream of customers. But yes, if we had fewer customers in tomorrow, then there are people who are trying to compete for really large prize pools or to win money out of the economy who would be disappointed.
Yeah.
Because there'd be less money coming in, so it is important. Now, people argue about what the best way to spend that money is, but I don't necessarily think it's the case that the company is beholden to customers on the site to only engage in marketing efforts that customers think are correct. It's a business.
Exactly, yeah.
It has a marketing department, and the people know quite a lot about what they're doing for what it's worth. One of the things about coming to work at PokerStars, I thought I knew a lot more about how things should be on a poker site just from knowing the player side. And there were some things where actually our players do know better, quite frankly, because they're in there using the software every day. Mm-hmm. There's little annoyances and tweaks that, I can't play on the site every day.
Right.
I guess I could do it for play money. It'd be a poor use of my time, and it'd be a poor use of my time. It's not my job and things like that. It's just not quite the same for me as a money player, right? Players really give us really good feedback on that stuff. But as far as how to run the business, there's times to listen, but there's people that have degrees and decades of experience in marketing and understand these things very well, and also have done a lot of research about our recreational player base. And the guy that comes in and wins a lot of money on the side or plays all the time people do tend to assume that other people are a lot like them, but it may be that we have a lot of other customers who are in fact not quite like them. And the people that play occasionally on our site have different wants and needs than the people who play every day or every hour even. Right? So, which are not completely different needs. There's all people who care a lot about the game of poker, and it's important that we provide an authentic product and we pay attention to that gameplay and make sure it's a fair, balanced environment. Those are all really important parts of our product.
But it is hard because there aren't that many products that businesses can sell where the people who work for the company aren't able to actually consume the product as it's sold to the actual customers. It just doesn't happen very often. Poker happens to be one of those things.
That's a very good point.
One of the interesting things that's happened in the last few years with regards to player rewards is that they're always, when the industry was very young, there was this thing called rakeback, and it was something that a lot of money was spent on to keep a certain segment of the player base happy, right? And I was involved with rakeback, but I would be the first to admit that it was a bad model. I don't think it was a good model as far as running an efficient poker site. But there really seems to be a movement to spending a lot of that money to keep those casual players engaged. And I know there's some changes coming down the line with PokerStars as far as the VIP program. We'll touch on those in the next few weeks, I'm sure. But there really seems to be this movement, Steve, to keeping another segment of the players happy.
I'm gonna not answer that question.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
But I will explain why. There are changes coming down to the VIP program, and I want to let the people who are involved in operating the poker room going forward be the ones that have the voice to speak about their vision for the loyalty program. So, look, there's good people. There's a lot of good people there that care a lot about the game. They're smart folks or experienced. They're doing things that they think make sense. But they should probably be the ones that speak about it. But I do believe that Matthew will be on
we'll go over it.
soon to go over that stuff in detail with you.
It's not his job. He's done. Leave the man alone.
Well, he doesn't have a new job, so I can't even ask him what his new job. He doesn't know.
You can ask me about my new job a little bit. That's a fun topic of conversation.
There are video games.
Let's get into your new job.
I've got a buddy who's got a great game idea.
Yeah. Well, and poker is one of those things where it lends itself to changing game types. We've seen it over the years with PokerStars. You've got Courchevel. You've got all kinds of new games. Big O. Small changes to games that
even format. Something like a spin and go is still poker, but it's kind of weird.
It's
not the way that we thought about poker before or thought about running a sit and go before.
The spin and go would be more of not necessarily because of the format. Obviously, if I could add a card to poker and make it wildly popular, I would. But most of the variants that have come up have been niche things that have appealed to small segments of existing player base. They haven't been growing. Yeah. Zoom did a little bit in the way of growth, but it was still more from existing folks because it took a little bit of people to understand it wasn't what they're used to seeing on TV. Spin and go really, it really opened things up a little bit to a new segment.
Do you think Stars knew how popular spin and goes were going to be?
Well,
was it anticipated that
yes, there was a not completely dissimilar format deployed on a competitor in France. So there was some idea that something in this general category of game, of course it's not exactly the same. It's different, but something in this general category could be successful.
Would be successful. Yeah. You mentioned esports and different things to look at. This is an emerging market, obviously. People and you talk to poker players and you say, there's 20,000 people going to an arena to watch somebody play video games, and they're like, no, you're making that up. But this kind of stuff is going on, and there's this massive sort of market of people participating in something pretty similar that hopefully we can attract.
It's fantastic. Now, I won't be involved in whatever happens with esports and poker, but I think personally see a really fantastic opportunity for poker if a league can come up and really generate the ability to be a fan. It's hard to be a poker fan right now.
Yeah.
Right? Because what do you follow? Which team do you root for? What jersey do you wear? If you want to watch a player, when are you going to be able to watch them? Right? When are they next going to compete in front of a camera? I don't know. Do you?
No.
Right? So being a fan of poker is it's pretty impossible right now. You just have to be a hardcore and love the game, but you can't really.
You got Twitch now.
You can't be a
Twitch
fan of a person.
It's a good thing to follow now.
Twitch does it, and that is nice.
Everybody's on Team Somerville.
Come on, Jamie Staples.
That's true. Staples,
But Somerville's obviously doing fantastic things. But it's a little bit different, right? They're not playing against each other in a league.
Right.
There's not a playoffs. There's not a championship. Neither one of them claims to be the very best, and they're not competing to be the very best.
Right.
So being a fan of that level, which is what esports has tapped into, is a fantastic opportunity. I think personally for poker. And I hope something comes about. But again, I'll be working more on the product side, and I'm sure topics like that will come up, and I'll feed information back to the rest of the company. But that won't be my primary duty.
You've come from spending a bunch of time in operations at the biggest poker site in the world. I want to get your opinions on some of the challenges, or not challenges, but issues that poker might face, and specifically online poker. In the next few years, what kind of things do we have to look for to issues to address, et cetera, do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to dodge that one too. If you want to talk about the future of online poker, you're going to have to talk to the new guys. People. You go back, and every year there's, oh my goodness, there's a crisis. It's not 2009 today, so everything must be going terrible. Poker's doing fine in my view. There's bumps in the road. The most recent things have been regulation and taxation, and that's still ongoing. It's still sweeping through the world, so that's a far from resolved bump in the road, so to speak.
Sure.
By the way, the outcome, right? PokerStars has always been about being licensed and regulated, and if it means that taxed in as many markets as possible, and is regulated and licensed in more markets than any other poker provider, basically everywhere we can be, essentially, with a couple of with the U.S. accepted, I suppose. So that's going on right now. I don't. What will the future bring? I wouldn't care to speculate. I want to leave that to the guys who are running it.
New exciting things like products.
Well, those are bumps in the road. Sorry, new exciting things, products. Yeah, absolutely. I think something like esports and esports type poker thing could be fantastic. New products. I think hopefully, if I'm successful, certainly new products to attract new markets and freshen things up, and maybe even create an online format that can be played competitively in a way that is more attractive to viewers, right? For a championship, maybe that can merge in with esports.
When you look at a new product, what kind of thing, if you don't mind talking about, what is important in the new product. And when I ask that question, I think specifically about something like No Limit Hold'em versus PLO. When you have a situation with No Limit Hold'em where it's very easy for the best players to kind of win fast and dominate versus PLO where hand equities run close. Is that something that's a concern when you look at a new product? You go, hang on, this has got to be. We looked at Spin and Goes where there's a redistribution of money in different places. New products, do they need to be friendly to the casual player?
Well, I think there's a lot of different opportunities you could define. So there's two ways you could go about the product development. One is just take something that you think is a really good product and develop it and let it appeal to whoever it appeals, just because the game is that fun and you think it must just have some sort of market, right? But the way most of this would run would be defining a market opportunity, right? With I guess 4 or 5 or 6 different attributes, right? And then trying to build a game that meets that. And so you're asking me to say, is this going to be a requirement? There'll be several different opportunities, and that might be a category for, it might be an attribute of some of the opportunities, but not of others, right? So I would, for example, Zoom, not really massively growing poker, but if there's another Zoom out there, sure, maybe we would develop it. But on the other hand, we could find something that attract a whole bunch of new players, that would be great. So it's not an exclusively required attribute, but it's certainly desirable for a lot of the opportunities. Yeah.
I always wonder if there's other cultural games out there in the world that would lend itself, because you think of poker as sort of an American cultural game that's spread around the world, and that could be inaccurate, but it just would. That's
I certainly think that was true for the vast majority of the 20th century, and then ceased to be true sort of like around 2005-ish, right?
Yeah.
Like with
for sure. But is there games in some other country that's culturally?
I've heard of specific variants in India that I'm not going to share.
Yeah.
That are quite interesting, really. Yes, there's absolutely poker.
Well,
going
if you
on.
think about like
Telesina in Italy, right? So
yeah. Or OFC. I mean, it's called Chinese poker. It was called Chinese poker. Like my parents can play the traditional 3-5-5 Chinese poker, and then Chinese poker became open face, and then open face became open face pineapple, and next year it'll be whatever it is next year. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the challenge that Steve and people like him have ahead of it is just find the next thing and
instead of fabricating one,
iterating,
finding one.
Yeah, remember when Rock Paper Scissors was on ESPN?
Yeah,
that was on the front page of Reddit the other day. I was watching it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was on about the same time. ESPN 14.
It was on the main ESPN.
It was the Tilt Boys.
Yeah,
Phil
Gordon was hosting, and they had the heads up. Rock, paper, scissors. Well, I guess it would have to be heads up, but six max, rock, paper, scissors.
As a complete aside, do you think that's a skill game?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
No, it's not.
It's a game theory. It's a game theory game.
Yeah, it's a game.
It's a game. So you can randomize and you would negate every skill.
No, but that's Nash, but that's not optimal exploitation of an imperfectly playing opponent.
Yeah. How about it's easily solved by playing completely randomly?
There's still variance, though. There has to be variance.
But
you can't choose perfectly every time.
If there's an exploitive strategy you can use to get better value out of a
why would you play
opponent,
randomly? Yeah.
Why would you play randomly?
Yeah, you would only play randomly when you think the other guy's better than you.
So in theory, the championship should not be like the 10 best players playing against one another because they would all know how to randomize. It would be 10 people all playing against RPS fish, essentially, Rochambeau fish, to see who can best exploit the random player.
Exactly. Yeah. The 4 of us. Then we get 4 of us who gets the most
Coming
wins.
soon to Poker Stars. Rock, paper, scissors.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, we just got a free. We finally got it out of him what he's working on.
Via webcam.
You didn't want to say it. So we're right in the middle of the World Championship of Online Poker, Steve. We talked earlier about Jason Somerville's deep run in the progressive knockout, where the bounties were getting huge. A lot of fun. One of the other things that we wanted to get to was we've got the 50K event this year. This is the highest online buy-in for a poker tournament in history. It's a pretty big deal, $50,000 buy-in. And the amazing thing is that PokerStars is going to be giving away an entry into the 50K through VIPs.
Yeah, I see 2 stories through FPPs. Yeah,
you'll get it right eventually.
Through some PPs.
Yeah, it ends in PP. I know that.
Yeah, there's two storylines. One is, the elite of online poker coming together to compete, and the other is the wild card and sweating that guy, right? So,
How crazy is that going to be?
Yeah, that's going to be fantastic. It's a bit of a Shark Tank, but I hope they perform well. There's a decent possibility that the person who qualifies through for FPPs might be a player, a fairly competent person themselves. I think the finals a reasonable buy-in. And
so FPPs. are the satellites, the FPP satellites themselves? Are they? What is it? Is it heads up or is it 6 max? Or what's the format of it?
I assume they're 9 max.
Okay.
They may be 8 max. I have to double check, but I would assume that they're 9 max.
Gotcha.
No limit hold'em. But you can start with a very low buy-in and progress your way through it. They're called VIP bashes, so we assume there may well be some added value to guarantee that one seat.
Yeah.
So it could be good value as well.
Overlay alert, but then you have to go play against Caxton.
But you know what?
So if you do the skill factor modification.
It's like there's some overlay, but
but it's a dream, You could say how many people are going to be able to say they played in that tournament? Not only say you did it, but experience it. That's just it's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting on the pro side, the guys who are buying into this thing. They're all obviously going to want to draw the guy who won his way in with FPPs, but that guy's got to make it through a pretty deep. I'm guessing it's a pretty big gauntlet to run. I mean, that guy's got to be able to play. So I don't think you're going to get just a walkover in round one.
Yeah, there's a lot of good poker players out there, and sometimes what separates the guys on the top from the others is simply bankroll and time, right? So I feel confident that there'll be a good poker player that'll make their way through it, and I really hope it's a good poker player who usually plays really low stakes. That makes for a great story. But whoever it is, I'll be rooting for him.
Steve, thanks so much for the years of contributions to the show. You were always straight coming, forthright. It was fun to have you because we could ask you anything, and you would answer it. I really appreciate that. We were lucky to have you for as long as we did.
Thanks, Adam. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure coming on the show with you guys all these years. I'm sad to see it ending, but hey, you never know. Maybe we'll develop a fantastic game variant. I'll have the opportunity to come on and speak on it at some point in the future.
And add one more to the PokerCast appearance list from Steve Day. Steve, thanks so much. You're listening to the 2+2 PokerCast. More after this. We're going to do some mailbag. We've got some more in case you missed it to get to, some forum stuff. We are sponsored by the PokerStars VIP Club. More right after this.
Under the gun opens to 3x 200 big blind Steve. I defend my big blind with queen jack off with no spades. The flop comes ace king 10 rainbow with one spade, and it's a flop that favors the opener's range more than mine, and it's hard for me to check raise any semi-bluff, so I check call his c-bet for deception and to protect my range. The turn is an 8 putting a flush draw out there, and this time I check raise to set it up for a pot-sized river shove. The river is the worst card in the deck, another ace, and I check with the intention of folding to a shove, but he elects not to turn 10-8 into a bluff, even though it's a great candidate with the full house blockers, and I win the pot.
Team Pro Online's Mickey Memento Mori Peterson is a Supernova VIP. This is the 2+2 PokerCast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club.
Hey folks, don't forget to follow the PokerCast crew on Twitter. Adam is at PokerCastAdam, and he'll keep you up to date on things like upcoming guests, listener contests, and all the latest bacon-related food innovations. Follow Ross at PokerCastRoss, and you'll discover new hip-hop bands and learn how to not play Micro Stakes No Limit. Also, give us a like on Facebook, where we post lots of photos and other nonsense.
Hi guys, it's Mike from ProfessionalPoker.com and the 2+2 store with some great news for our PokerStars players. You can now use your frequent player points to purchase gift cards available from ProfessionalPoker.com. These same cards will also work at the 2+2 store. The gift cards come in increments of $25 and $50, and you can apply multiple gift cards per order. So now you can get the books, videos, and ebooks from all the major publishers using just your FPPs. So check out the gift card section of the PokerStars FPP store and pick up the poker training material you've had your eye on for a while at the 2+2 store and ProfessionalPoker.com.
Okay, people, most of the kittens have perished. There are a few left you can save, though, and here's how to do it. Get involved with the PokerCast by emailing your questions, suggestions for the show, or even record a sound clip. Adam will be using the best ones on the air. Well, let's face it, probably the worst ones as well. I can see you there at your computer. Send an email right now. Totally disagree with one of Adam's takes last week? Send an email. Love last week's interview? Email. Want to know how much cash Adam has on him right now? Email. PokerCast@2plus2.com is the address. Ship the funny to Adam today.
This week on the Crush Live Poker Podcast, unless you get super duper coolered, it's really difficult for you to lose. And one of the games that if you want to try to find a game like that, especially in Southern California or any other casino where they don't really charge you for walking, and that's what happens at Commerce, it's a drop, right? So you can just walk. It doesn't cost you anything. Where there's more than 3 out buttons. There's no like third man walking rule in California. Join me every Tuesday as I analyze my own play and help you become a better no-limit cash game player on the Crush Live Poker Podcast.
Welcome back to the 2+2 PokerCast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. We've got some more in case you missed it to get to. We'll get some Roscoe report and some mailbag all in this segment. So let's first finish up with some in case you missed it. Lots of multi-table tournament stuff going on to talk about. The Legends of Poker at the Bicycle Casino wrapped up over the weekend. This is one of the oldest running tournament series.
And it used to be by far one of the most important, too.
It really was,
kind of much lower profile these days. I think the buy-in has changed a lot over the years. But back in the day, Legends of Poker was like one of the 3 or 4 biggest tournaments in the U.S. and in the world, I guess.
World Poker Tour circuit. This year, the main event saw, speaking of old school, Mr. Freddie Deeb went on a deep run and got back into the spotlight. He actually ended up heads up with a massive chip lead over a guy named Mike Sherrarty. At one point during a heads-up play, Freddie had him $21.5 million to $2 million, and Sherrarty came back and took down the title. Winning $675,000, which is pretty scary when you have him
10 to 1,
over 10 to 1, 11 to 1.
But it really just we've seen that so many times. Like you double up twice when you're 10 to 1, and now it's 6
Didn't that happen to your brother?
It was way worse than 10 to 1 when it was
limit hold'em.
It was limit hold'em, and he had like a big blind or something. It was probably
he was all in the big blind.
Yeah, it was probably like more like 35 to 1 or something.
Oh my God. He was all into the big blind with like 8 deuce, and my brother had pocket sixes.
Yeah,
he had 1 overcard to my brother's pair.
So at that point, he's probably like 1% to win the tournament.
Matt Kikoen, who ended up taking down the bracelet. Yeah, so Dan finished second that year, and then won it the next year, the 10K limit hole. That was crazy. Anyway, so pretty interesting that Freddie, I guess he just maybe sticks to LA tournaments and maybe doesn't travel as much as he used to. So that was pretty cool. Also, talking about multi-table tournaments. The WinStar Casino in Thackerville, Oklahoma.
One of the best named cities out there.
Thackerville, that's an awesome name. They host the River Poker Series, and the $2,400 main event has a $2.5 million guaranteed prize pool with a $1 million first place prize pool.
Wait a minute. I'm not so good with
You're not a math guy. But that's an interesting
That
setup.
is not what we call a flat payout structure.
No. So it's a re-entry event, three starting days feeding into one day 2. Right now, Andy Andreevich leads with.
They're killing you. They're killing you this week.
He leads with 8 people left. Barry Hutter's in second. Max Coleman also still alive. So $1 million guaranteed for first.
What does second pay? I'm trying to Google this frantically.
$279,000.
Okay.
Oh boy.
So it's
like a party poker cruise.
It is, yeah.
So almost that bad.
But they've set it up this way. So they beat the guarantee. I mean, they have, I think it's $2.7 million prize pool.
Yeah.
They beat the guarantee, so they're in probably what they expected it to be, right? A little bit over the guarantee.
Yeah.
And you've basically set yourself up for this situation where you have a massive disparity between
you
first
have
and
like
second.
a 300 buy-in bubble.
It was almost always going to happen like this, right?
Yeah.
So
unless you just thought you were going to mash the guarantee, but yeah, like,
it's so weird that they would do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, it's not the first time. I mean, the World Series itself did it by doing the $10 million.
Well, but that's different because you could at least build. You have
yeah,
such
no,
a
I
huge
understand.
prize pool,
It's not as big a discrepancy, but like casino and marketing executives love doing shit like this, just advertising the big first place.
They've done it for
number.
a couple of years now. You would think at some point they learned.
Well, they don't. I mean, like it's or they don't care, right? Like they don't just care because they don't approach it the way that we approach it. Like, oh, there's going to be this big bubble. Because I'm sure somebody at the boardroom went, well, there's going to be a big bubble, and somebody else in a suit went, well, why do I care?
Well,
why is that my problem?
Yeah.
Why is that my problem? I want to have a banner that says we paying $1 million for first place. We're giving away $1 millionaire. We're doing a millionaire maker, or somebody's going to be a millionaire. Like, and we want to put that on a billboard, like circulating through Oklahoma. I mean,
crazy.
You
would hope that they're going to facilitate deals when first is $1 million and second is.
I would hope so, but the World Series doesn't. So I don't know if the WinStars Casino in Thacklerville, Oklahoma will.
Yeah.
But hopefully they do.
Maria Ho's the player representative for the room.
Okay.
You would hope that she has some input on what can happen there, and hopefully she knows she does know, of course, but hopefully she has some influence with talking to them to make it clear that deal making is probably going to happen there.
Yeah. And then they have to do the right thing with respect to issuing the W-2s.
And all that. So. Yeah, indeed. Also in multi-table tournaments, of course, one of the big stories this week, the 2015 edition of the World Championship of Online Poker got underway on Sunday. Plenty of tweets, here comes the grind, here's my grind setup, here's my schedule, I'm hunkered down for a month. I mean, you see these people, the MTT specialists travel around the world to get themselves set up and then just literally don't leave their desk for a month.
Joseph Chong, my favorite of these social media things was Joseph. I jumped on my Facebook and saw Joseph Chong. Anybody in Vancouver available to dog sit for a couple hours? I guess his dog had to pee.
Walk my dog. Yeah,
I guess his dog had to pee.
You'd make a bunch of money being a dog walker for poker players.
Man,
yeah,
I got to get in on
food
that.
Service delivery guy too. Like if
just be a PA for all these guys.
Yeah,
I'm going to start sending some tweets.
Available for hire, Roscoe P. Coltrane. Love it. Event number one was the $109 event that had a bunch of phases to get through to the final phase 2 of the tournament. Ends up being taken down by Costa Rican player, Rockin' the Suburbs.
So, I'm going to go ahead and guess that player's not originally from Costa Rica. I could be wrong. I mean, maybe I'm being a jerk, but probably one of those people probably a Black Friday refugee.
Is the internet strong there, right? Because it's a internet-based
It sucked
economy.
when I lived. Well, certainly when I lived there, it was terrible. Like rainstorms right now, so it's like October September, isn't like super rainy, but it's still rainy. Like rainstorms would knock out my internet all the time. Mind you, this is like a decade ago.
Yeah.
I have to think it's better now.
Think probably better now.
But even at the PokerStars office, we would have like internet outages, which really sucks, right? And you've got like trying to answer.
Company.
Yeah, you're running an internet company with customer support people, and a lot of times they're just sitting around making coffee while we're waiting for the internet to come back on. This is awesome.
Rockin' the Suburbs wins $200K for a $100 buy-in.
Nice.
That's a lot of
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Event 2, the 10K head-up high roller was won by Mikael Thurlitz from Sweden. He takes that one down, beats all the superstar field there.
Yeah.
Event 4 was the Sunday Million. So they're back to beating the guarantee after it missed a couple weeks ago. We talked about that. English player V7JC V21, which sounds like his license plate, takes down $260,000 and the title for that one. Did you see Jay Carver, Jason Somerville, go deep in the $700 progressives?
Yeah, what was his viewer count yesterday?
It was a lot.
I'd like to know.
I think he
hit 35,000.
Yeah, it was 35-40. He was the number one stream on Twitch for a bit.
Wow.
Guy's awesome.
Went deep and ended up finishing 6th. He played
one
of the craziest hands I've seen in a while. T, I don't know if you saw this.
I did not. I'd like to know.
I don't want to go. I'll butcher it if I don't have it written out, so we won't really talk about it. But he played a hand quite strange.
He was the chip leader at the final table, and he was putting the pressure on.
Yeah, he 3-bet guy with aces with Queen Jack and ended up catching runner and made like 4th nut flush Bet the River got check raised by the nuts and called. And it's funny because people were butchering him, like just all over him for how he played the hand. And I guarantee you, if you talk to him, he would probably want a lot of it back. And he made a mistake clearly.
It was a mistake, but it wasn't. It wasn't for his tournament life.
And you're watching the guy play every hand. Like if you watched me play every hand, you would
be
like,
we've talked about
God,
this before.
You're
When Somerville goes deep, it's like he's so much more under a microscope than everybody else.
35,000 people watching him play every hand.
And because of that, like how many elite high stakes pros are out there doing that? Very, very, very few. And so like he's it's kind of unfair to say like, oh, he played a hand bad and therefore he sucks. I don't know if people are actually out there saying that. But yeah, I mean, there's how many other people are putting themselves out there.
Oh yeah, it's awesome for the stream.
I don't even think he cares.
He starts. At least from like a poker strategy perspective, when he gets into a weird hand like that, like I couldn't look away. I was just enthralled with what's going to happen.
Of course.
This is just a train wreck, this hand, and it's so fun to watch.
Yeah.
It was a really good stream to watch. There's a lot of good WCOOP streams. There's
so many.
There's Fader Holtz.
So Fader Holtz is a Crown Up guy,
yep.
of course. He is live streaming with a small delay his cards up in all his tournaments, and this is one of the best multi-table tournament guys out there.
Yeah,
and he doesn't spend a lot of time talking about his plays. It's quiet generally. But you get to watch one of the best players play his hands.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really valuable to be able to do that. So many great streams on right now. If you want to go check it out, do some research, spend some time, because watching some of these guys play at the top of the internet poker food chain is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I just love it. We also mentioned in a show or two before, the replays of the World Championship of Online Poker. I haven't gone back to see if you can see those yet. But if you can, check those out, because also, some of the best, even the high stakes head up event, you can go back and watch some of those, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a head up player, worth a ton to go back and see.
Yeah, they are. The replays are already up for the first 4 events.
Perfect.
I'm looking at them right now.
In case you missed it, Martin Jakobsen, he, of course, the 2014 world champion.
Sounds right.
The main event world champion, the 10 for 10 documentary that he was involved with, the poker documentary, was released this week.
All 3 parts.
All 3 parts. I think the total is about 25 minutes, somewhere in that range.
Not a long one, but really well done.
Not a long one, just fascinating, because this is, it's of course a play on words for the ESPN documentaries 30 for 30 that a lot of people...
I'm not sure that it was, because, you remember that part at the end, they're chanting 10 for 10, because it's... they need a 10 ball for $10 million. I mean, spoiler alert,
that it?
He gets all in for it with pocket 10s and for $10 million.
Spoiler alert.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, exactly.
One of the most famous.
If you're spoilered for the 2014 WSOP main event, and you're listening to the show. I don't know what to say.
Good, yeah.
But yeah, no.
Oh, okay.
He's all in with pocket 10s, and he's going to win $10 million. That's, I think, where 10 for 10.
Fantastic! I thought it was a play on words. We were going to see more documentaries, but if it's just the Martin Jakobsen one, then I guess I'm mistaken. Cool though, and like you said, really well done. Like
I don't know if I've ever seen production quality like this in a poker documentary.
The only one I would say is Bet Race Fold.
Right, and that's the only one that's a contender, and that's much longer, so it's harder. But this one is awesome. I mean, it's great production values. They go around to a bunch of different people, a bunch of different scenarios, and they really just follow them around. And you could tell that they shot hours and hours and hours just to get this down to like this, like you said, the 28 minutes or whatever it is.
His preparation, some of the stuff, his friends talking through hands, pumping him up for his nutrition, all kinds of really cool stuff like that. He makes an interesting statement. He said, I originally thought I'd go out and hire a poker coach, a life coach, and a nutritionist. And then I looked around and said, I have all these people as my friends already.
Right, which is super cool.
Which is, really cool. So,
yeah, like I know that JC Alvarado was probably filled the role of nutritionist. I talked with him a lot about that on he was asking JC what he should eat, and you actually see it in there. He's before the game. It's like it's all protein and fat. It's only like eggs and avocados. There's like no carb. There's no carbs in there at all, because it says like brain food. And
what would carbs do to you if you're playing?
Generally, I mean, glucose generally gives you the
makes
short insulin spike, and makes you a little mentally foggy. But then it's as the day goes, you maybe want to increase your carbohydrate intake, like as you get into like 8 hour 10 or something like that. But definitely a bad thing for the start of the day. But definitely would love to talk about Martin sometime. We reached out to him, tried to get a hold of him this week. He's a little bit busy right now, so maybe we'll have him on talk about the documentary in the future.
Might be playing with Coop events.
You could
yeah. So day one on the video, he gets down to 7 big blinds.
Right. This is at the final table, of course.
This is the final table.
Not day one, but yeah.
Sorry, day one of the final table. Yeah. And MJ's voice comes over.
Yeah.
And says he says something about the fact that the bracelet means more to Martin than the money. And I'm thinking, gee, MJ gets in every fucking poker doc.
Do you know what's crazy about this? Is that I watched the video and I didn't realize that it was MJ.
Oh, really?
Which makes your point even more valid. He's in so many poker documentaries. One of his close friends who works in the poker world didn't realize it was him.
Joe.
Very nice.
They didn't put that drop in.
They should have.
He was in Bet-Raise Full too, of course.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that was I thought that was funny. Real cool moment when this is when we talk about the production. When Jakobsen gets it all in with the 10s against Stevenson's Ace-9, I believe. The cards are put up on their backs. Of course, they all kind of back up to their rails, and Martin kind of looks up. And the documentary flashes to a whole bunch of other times during his preparation that he kind of looks up. And it just kind of flashes in different points. And it's like, okay, you've done all this to get to this point. Now it's like, hand hold up, please.
Yeah.
It's not like I can do anything. The cards are in the back. It's already been determined. Of course, 10 ball right on the flop. The flop becomes 10-9, I believe.
Yeah.
And he's
drawing to like 1%.
Next to dead. So, the other thing I thought was cool was they didn't run it out. Like, it came 10-9-3, and then it was just like, they didn't need to say, they didn't need to run the turn in the river.
He has 3 of a kind.
Right?
The other guy needs 2 cards that are perfect for straight.
Yeah.
The 10 ball rolls off, and with that flop, he just basically ran into the crowd because, like I said, he's like over 99%, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what the flop was, but he just runs into the crowd, and that's kind of all you see there.
I like how he used the hashtag straight out of Stockholm when he was promoting it.
Do you think there's probably some guy out there who's written a straight out of Stockholm like parody or something
already?
like that? What do you think would be the lyrics to straight out of Stockholm?
I don't know. Maybe Swedish.
But yeah, it was an awesome documentary.
It was.
And like if you could watch this and not be excited to play poker, like you're better than me. Like, I'm the cynical, jaded old guy who's sick of poker. Like, like a lot of time. But I was like, oh man, like, that's fucking fun.
Let's go play some multi-time
tournaments. That's fun. Like, I just sat there watching, going like, yeah, I'd like to make the final table the main event. That would be okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind doing that. It gets the juices flowing for sure. More than I think the ESPN broadcast as well as they do for
really?
that. Talking about like day 4 of like the ESPN broadcast or something like that. Like, obviously watching the new champion get crowned live or watching like 3-handed and heads up action, that's pretty intense when you're watching it live. But like, this is just like condensed down, like it's dessert form excitement, right?
See,
like,
the ESPN one, the part of the ESPN broadcast that always appealed to me the most was day 1, day 2, day 3. I always loved those parts. Nobody's winning or losing the tournament at this. Well, they're losing the tournament. But nobody's winning the tournament in day 1 or day 2.
It's true. You get a lot of excited amateur story.
You get all those really cool stories. The suckouts, the 1% hands that come back and destroy a guy or make a guy, pull a guy out from nowhere.
Fair enough. Yeah, to me, I guess I enjoyed, and you guys should go out there and watch the documentary, obviously. But I enjoyed the preparation part that Martin did. He's hanging around all these other poker superstars, and they're doing the prep, and you can see kind of what's happening in August, in September, in October, leading up to the November 9. And like you said, dialing in his nutrition, dialing in his fitness, doing all of the stuff that he needs to do, and it's like, man, I would love to do that. Like, what if I made the final table one day? Do that cool. Scouting. How am I going to play against Mark Newhouse or whatever it is? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Are you going to play any W Coop?
I will try to play some W Coop. I've got a little bit of time. But it works out just as well in Hong Kong because I wake up so early now.
Right. I think Martin was an excellent champion for the game. I think he's really well polite. He's a good-looking guy. He's an excellent player, well respected by all the the elite of the MTT players. But do you need? I'm thinking about next year or in the years following. Is that the kind of champion you want every year, or do you want somebody who's going to bring a different sort of viewer to the game?
Well, yeah. Obviously, if you some supermodel female is always what they want. But realistically, when you're talking about like, there's probably like a 60% chance in any given year that it's like an internet poker kid, right? Like, it's like maybe 70 or 80% that the reigning champion will be an internet poker kid, but not all internet poker kids are created equal, right? And I think when you're talking about internet poker kids, Martin is sort of like you say, sort of like the top 5%. Of the results you can get. He's well-spoken, speaks multiple languages. Seems like a good guy that you can cheer for, that kind of thing. So there's a difference. Like there's a lot of people who have just sort of had very little charisma and very little personality over the years. So yeah, I mean, obviously we would love for many different archetypes of people, categories of people to win the main event.
To attract different groups.
But you're talking about realistically, it's probably going to be a male aged 25 to 40 for a long time. But,
Pretty good chance. All right, in case you missed it, Italian player Gaetano Priete plays a joke and gets DQ'd from a final table in Malta. That's a great name, by the way, Priete. As they're begging for the final table of a People's Poker Tour main event in Malta.
Sounds like some sort of communist poker.
It's a cult poker tour.
The People's Poker Tour.
There's no rank.
One of us.
Or the rake is 100%.
Proletariat, yeah. Karl Marx Poker Tour. He took a stack of chips from his friend he was sitting next to, who made the final table. I guess his friend just busted the last guy before the final table, was cheering, whatever. He grabbed a stack and kind of hid it. It doesn't say what he did with the stack, and ran off to his rail.
So they were both, like he and his friend are both at the final table.
He and his friend are both at the final table.
Okay.
He does something with one of the stacks that he just won from the guy he busted. Runs over to his rail and says, I just played this joke on this guy. Pretty funny, right? He's talking to his friends. He comes back, and the guy has bagged and tagged his bag without the chips.
Oh, no.
And the guy says, hang on a second, I just played a joke. Here are the chips.
You got to put these chips in the bag.
Put these chips in the bag.
In a new bag.
And
or
they're
whatever.
like, what are you talking about? And he explained what happened, and they DQ'd him from the final table.
Wow. The most expensive joke played in the history of tournament poker.
Maybe, right?
There. It's Italian, too. So, anyway.
Did you think you were getting the opportunity to play that drop
that
twice?
Might be the most in-context drop
that's
you've ever
the best one you've ever done. And you did it. You nailed it twice in the same show.
So, interesting. I don't know.
Well, we're like 1 week away from talking about like one of the most massive angles shot in another part of Europe.
Right.
Like one of the most significant angles of the year shot.
Did he deserve to get DQ'd?
I don't think so. I mean, no. Like, I mean, I'm all Mr. like harsh on crime and follow the rules stuff. But that seems a bit messy. Like, there's really no harm done here, right?
I guess if he grabbed the stack and put it in his stack, I think that might be grounds for disqualification, because you could always say, "Oh, I was joking," but actually, he wasn't joking. You know
right. Like, so if he grabbed some stack and like put it somewhere else, and then like. It's a stupid thing to do, because like the tournament director or somebody else could be like, hey, that guy just grabbed a stack. Right. And then now you're sitting there with a stack like, no, I was joking. Like, sure you were, buddy. Like, you're out of here, right? Like, but if like, he got away with it, quote unquote, the first time, and then like brings it back over there and says, no, actually you have 1.3 million or whatever it is, then it's like really nothing bad has happened. Like, there's no harm, and if you know for sure the intent wasn't to do anything shady, then like, it seems a little crazy.
It seems,
like,
I guess there's a lot of details we really don't know, but it does seem like.
So when he's DQ'd at the final table, does he get paid for the spot that he was in? I mean, presumably they're no money.
You would think he would.
Like you don't get. That's weird. Like you don't just like they don't move everybody out.
Didn't say, but you would think they would get that place, and they did say they took his chips out of play. So
wow,
interesting. Anyway, be careful
really
when you play
I feel
jokes.
like if the friend could vouch for him, then it's really up to the friend whether he wants to like press charges.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's up to it affects the whole tournament.
Yeah, like, not people do this in cash games all the time to their friends.
Like, yeah, but that just affects the two players. You're talking about the whole tournament, right?
I'm looking at the Hendon mob for Gaetano Priete. He does not have a cash this week. So I can tell you about that. I mean, I could look up the People's Poker Tour and tell you if the other guy did. But I can tell you that as of right now, that he does not have his prize money.
All right, why don't we get on to the Roscoe report?
Okay. Still haven't made it.
I feel like the Roscoe report should have a whole bunch of the sheriff from the Dukes of Hazzard
Okay.
Roscoe Pico train laughing or doing stuff. That drop should be in there somewhere. Okay.
All right.
So let's give it. She played some live poker this week.
Yeah, I played on the weekend.
Right.
It's not because you excluded yourself from PokerStars.
So the 23%.
No, I'm back on PokerStars. Actually, I'm playing live. I'm playing live to win back what I lost on PokerStars. So.
There you go.
The 23% of people who don't want to have more Ross Report are now tuning out, right? Was it
That's
20?
correct.
Yeah.
You may hit your fast forward
We
percent.
don't want more. So this will be about the same amount.
23%. Dead on.
All right.
Okay. So played live. Went on Saturday afternoon. The game was quite good.
Again, this is a $1 to $5 bring-in.
$1 to $5 uncapped buy-in.
Okay.
So the table average is usually between 500 and 1K, depending on the time. Like at night, if you get there at night when stacks have been flying around, like the average stack can be like 2,000 or 3,000. So.
Which is fantastic because the game of PLO changes so much when you go from 100 big blinds or 80 big blinds to 400.
Far more than No Limit Hold'em does. Yeah.
Yeah. So it took me a while to get on the table. I played Hold'em for a little while, and it was a table full of just droolers. And it was great. I
hope they listen to the show.
They don't. I'm sure they don't know how to use iPods.
Wow. All right.
I guarantee they don't listen.
Okay.
At least the ones that I played against.
Hand number one.
So yeah. Anyways, what I was going to say is I won a bunch at 1-2, and then when I moved over to PLO, I didn't want to take the 800 that I had, so I took about 4, and then I'm up about 5 more at this point, so I have about 900 behind.
Crushing.
I'm on the button, and I have Ace, King, 9-5, double suited to the Ace and the King.
Okay.
So Ace 5 of clubs, King 9 of hearts. It's raised to 15 under the gun. It's called twice behind me. I mean, you could make an argument for 3-betting this hand, I guess.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I would like to see a flop in position, please.
And so I did that. I just called.
3-bet?
No, I just called.
Okay, good.
I just called. The blinds followed behind, so it's 6-handed to the flop. The pot's 90. It's a good flop for my hand. It's 9 of clubs, 3 of spades, 2 of clubs, so top pair, nut flush draw.
Gotcha.
And a wheel draw.
Yeah, gotcha to the wheel draw, 2 pair draw.
All the draws.
2 pair draw. Okay.
So it checks around to me. I lead for 80.
Full pot. Like you talk about why you bet 80 into a 90 pot.
Well, I thought. I mean, if
you want to win right there,
I have position. I want to get money in. I think I'm ahead on this flop.
I don't think it matters, right? Like, does it matter if you bet 70 or 80? Really? I mean,
I don't know. So I'm asking for.
I guess it would be different if you led for 40-ish.
Right.
But
how often
80s,
would you do that? I guess
I feel like 80 is pretty good. Like I kind of want to portray that I'm defending a hand.
Okay.
And when I'm technically drawing. So the 2 blinds behind me call, and they're both not great. They're pretty spewy. They like to call. I've played Hold'em with one of the guys. He's not great at Hold'em. And
are they deep as well?
They're both quite deep.
Okay. So they have you covered.
They both just won big pots. So the turn is an 8, an offsuit 8.
Okay, so let's recap. One of the comments that we had in our survey was people wanted us to recap the hand. So, all right, the flop again was 9-3 deuce with the 9 deuce of clubs.
Yeah.
The turn is the 8 of hearts. So
yes.
9-3 deuce 8.
Yes.
Okay.
So they both checked to me again, and
you bet 200.
So I decided to lead again because I still want to portray that I have a hand that is a made hand, and I'm pretty sure that the guy behind me is drawing. Like, I'm very sure, just the way that he's not even contemplating raising.
Okay.
So I feel like if he banks a club, I can get his whole stack, and he has me covered. So I can just get a huge pot out of this guy because he's not a PLO player,
okay,
and he will pay off. I'm fairly sure. So I decided to lead for 200 again. The small blind snap folds, and then, as I say, he begrudgingly calls the 200. And the river's another blank.
Did these guys call with like jack high flush draws in the spot? Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, I guess he could have, with the 8 of hearts on the turn, he can have like 10 jack of hearts, 10 jack of clubs, or some sort of club draw that turns an open ender as well, kind of thing. Okay,
but I mean, these guys, that's a really good question, actually, Adam. Like, if they are willing to call with that, are they also willing to bet out if they make a non-nut flush draw and then call a raise once you raise them? Because if they do, then it doesn't really matter, right? Like, you're still getting in 2 pot-sized bets either way.
Right.
The question I have about the turn is, are they going to be willing to shove it in with something that connected with that 8, because that 8 does connect with the 9, meaning that they're now like wrap straight draws, like they're now top 2 pair.
Straight and flush draws.
Like,
Especially if you're saying the guy snap calls, basically, you could tell he's on a draw. The 8 rolls off, and now he could have some.
If he has Jack 10, 9, 8,
yeah.
then he blows. Then he raises big, and you're not terribly happy about that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
That's just sort of my thought on that.
So he calls, and the river's a queen, bringing in that Jack 10 possible straight.
Queen of hearts, offsuit queen.
Not too worried about it. And so he just checks again, and I don't think I have enough showdown value to check behind, even though I might. So I just went all in.
So you just I
think that's reasonable.
He doesn't have aces here,
but he could have Jack 10. That's a question, right? So like some people, I think a lot of people will check Jack 10 here. I think especially.
What better hands are you getting to fold? Is the question that he could have here, right? Like that's what you want to ask yourself.
I mean, 9-8 should fold, right? Like 9-8 will probably fold. That's probably the main one.
Yeah, it's a
set of deuces or whatever.
9-8, yeah,
right?
maybe
Like,
a set. I have the top set blocker, so the story I've kind of told is a set of 9s.
I don't think set of deuces is folding, right? I mean,
I don't think he has a set of deuces. I don't know.
Okay.
If he,
you don't think a set of deuces is ever folding there? I mean, like the straight gets there, and this guy's barreled 3 times.
I mean, he barreled 3 times, and runner straight comes, and you're just going to believe that he made a straight because he barreled 3 times. I think if you got deuces and you're folding, you're going to do it. You're going to do it because you think the guy is top set or middle set.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting spot. It depends a lot on the player, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And sounds like you've got some experience with this guy.
I just didn't think he was going to call. It just didn't look like he had. He said that he had a straight draw on the flop and a flush draw. So after the hand.
So you had like 4 or 5 of clubs. Or
yeah. So.
Or you have the 5 of clubs, so he's got 4.
It looks like that
4 or 5 with
missed
clubs.
his hand,
yeah.
and he just called out of the big blind, so I don't think his hand is that connected.
Right.
So yeah, I just barrel and he snap folds, but it was still a little bit unnerving to make that huge bet.
I think your hand is pretty poor, so I'm fine with the bluff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then there's this other hand that came up. I'm in the big blind with the old 7-7-5-3 offsuit.
Oh, 7-7-5-3 no suits.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's limped to me in the big blind, so I just check it behind.
So there's 25 in the middle?
Yeah, there's 25 in the middle. The flop is, I don't remember the other 2 cards, but there's the King of Hearts, 10, deuce. King 10 deuce.
Wow, you're all over this flop, huh?
You don't remember the other 2 cards? Oh, they're
I don't
suits.
remember the suits.
Okay.
Yeah.
So King 10 deuce.
And you have 7-7-5-3. This is...
Okay,
how did this hand
love
make
that
it?
this hand is in there.
This is in the report.
Okay.
Checks around.
So it checks around, and the turn's a 7.
Oh, that's
how it made it.
Yeah. So I go for the double check raise in the spot. I check again, and the button leads for 20. I raise to 80. Everybody else folds, and then he calls. Now the river pairs the board and brings in the flush draw. So it's runner hearts. The backdoor flush gets there, but it pairs the board. Now I ended up checking it to this guy.
Was there a flush draw on the flop? Sorry. So
it turned to flush draw.
So there was no flush. So it's King 10 deuce.
So it's
the
possible.
Flop with no flush draw, right?
Yeah. So
and then the 7 of hearts brings a
backdoor flush draw,
heart draw,
and the river completes the backdoor flush draw as well as
and
so this guy's range on the turn when he leads, I think, is like a turned combo draw or a
total error.
He checked
well,
back.
it's not total error because
pair.
it's called the raise.
Yeah.
It's total.
No, when he said
stopped.
when he lay.
When he stops being total pair one. Yeah.
So the deuce is it's probably the sneakiest of the pairing of the board cards, I think. So I end up checking it to him
on the river.
On the river.
Okay.
And he pots it, and then I kind of wimped out. I think I could have raised for value here, but I just called.
I think calling's correct.
Yeah.
I think you got to raise there. I think you're leaving value on the table. Like he's not checking kings or tens in the flop.
Right.
It's checked to him. Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought afterwards.
I mean, how are you ever beat? You're beat.
But
there,
also,
you know what? The hand you're beat by is. I mean, not even that. I was going to say pocket deuces, but he's never checking bottom set either.
So you're willing to put like your whole stack in there?
Yeah.
I mean, no.
I think you're leaving EV on the table if you don't check raise there or lead. You know, I just check calling. I think is probably the worst. I think than leading or check raising.
Yeah, I think check raising might have been for.
I just don't know how you're ever beat.
This is true.
I'm checking my hands to you more often than Adam.
When like on the
if you never give the guy credit for slow playing.
Okay, you're on the button in a limp pot with 25 in the middle. You flop top set, and it checks around to you. Are you going to check?
Or middle set, like.
Are you going to check there, like ever?
No, not very often. But I mean,
So
I'm
that's
just
what I
saying,
mean.
like, if people are just going to pile like 3 bets in on the river, then I'm going to start checking.
I mean, I think it's specific.
Yeah.
And something would really good have to happen to you to check.
You have to
and,
go.
And
I
get
have
the
to
guy
go
stacked
runner full
in
house.
a $25 pot. So anyways, okay. So you end up check calling.
I check calling. He's got the nut flush. So I got probably.
I mean,
better
check
value.
calling. I guess maybe he's not calling a bunch of his flushes. If you lead the river,
If I pot the river,
people find or fold with the nut.
Yeah,
flush
so
there,
maybe check calling is second best rather than leading.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's an interesting one.
Yeah. So we have one live hand from last night.
Oh, we have
one online hand. Sorry.
Okay.
If you want to open that.
PLO hand.
So this is 10-25 cent. I have a pretty decent stack in the small blind in this hand.
Okay.
Got 3 buy-ins. I have 6-9-4-6 double suited.
9664, I think, is how most people call it.
9664 spades and clubs. Okay.
So
button makes it 85 cents.
Yeah, it raises the
Fold
pot
to you. You call the 85.
I call the 85. The player in the big blind calls 2, and he also has a big stack. He has 2 buy-ins.
So the flop comes ace 8-7 with 2 clubs. So you've got a 6-high flush draw, and you've got a open ender.
Yeah.
Well, and the bad open ender. The 6-9.
The Mexican straight draw is
that what it's called?
That's some people call it.
Correct.
So you lead for full pot almost, 220 on the flop, which is interesting because
you've got a bunch of draws that aren't that great.
You got a bunch of draws that aren't that great, and you're also leading into an ace-high flop into a razor, right?
Yeah.
So it's really easy for the razor to take. I mean, I'm not saying because I flat with aces out of position a lot of the time,
especially when you're at this stack kind of stack
But
size.
it's really easy for the razor to put you on a draw when you lead into an ace-high flop. I feel like because if you had aces, first of all, you're not going to have. You would check raise a lot of the time, right? Because people are almost always continuing.
But I might do this with like ace-8 for protection.
I guess maybe, yeah, but I think most of your range is flush draws and straight draws there, which is, and that's if you have a combo draw, you might have more equity than the other guy, anyways, depending on what he has. But I just think you put your hand on your forehead a lot of the time out of position when you do it this way. That's all.
Okay, so I bet and he raises.
No, you bet in the big blind raises,
the big
not
blind
the pre-flop
raises.
razor.
Right.
So the big blind makes it 904.
Yeah.
After you bet 220, which is interesting because he's not going to have. He
shouldn't have.
It's a similar thing to your hand, right? He's going to have a lot of wraps.
He would probably want to pot it pre-flop with aces as well.
Yeah, especially in his spot.
Right.
So you call the raise. The
Big
turn,
flush on the turn
is the 5 of clubs. Probably not the card you wanted to see because you now have a 6-high flush draw. Or sorry, you have a 6-high flush
with a straight flush redraw.
5 of hearts would have been great.
5 of hearts would have been a better card, but
Right.
you got the 5 of clubs. So you made a flush on the turn. But again, this guy seems like he has a lot of draws as well. So you check. The pot is
He leads
$20.
half pot.
He makes it. He bets 10, and you flat. And
I
the
think you have
river
to call there, obviously.
Yeah, I think you call there too.
The river is a weird card.
River's the king of clubs. Bringing 4 clubs to the board, no pair,
and the nut flush draw.
And
the nut flush draw. Nut flush draw is no longer his range.
Exactly, because the king of clubs is on the board.
Right, but he doesn't have the nut. He doesn't need to have the nut flush draw to bet the turn into
the nut flush. You mean?
Yeah, sorry, he doesn't need to have the nut flush to bet the turn there. Like I'm betting jack high flushes there too.
Yep.
Right. So I didn't give him the nut flush. I guess is what I'm saying. He shoves all in for $27, I believe, and you call, and it shows you the queen high flush. He had middle set,
and
he
the
had
flush.
queen 8-8-4, so he flopped middle set and a queen high flush draw.
Yeah, so that's really unlucky in the sense that it's very unlikely that he would have a flush and a set. I mean, that doesn't happen very often. So that's really unlucky that you managed to run into a hand that could 3-barrel you, in that sense. On the other hand, I guess the question is still we have to deal with, like, did you have to lose as much as you did on the hand? And it's It's interesting because, like, I think this is a really good example of in PLO of a guy having a completely unexpected hand, right? Like, you would almost never expect to have the guy have the queen high flush to show up in this, except that he had the set backing it up, which is why he was betting, why he raised you on the flop, because a set and the second nut flush draw at that point is a really huge hand. And then he ends up making the second nut flush with set back up on the turn, so he's not really scared of anything. He's happy to play for stacks on every single street. And you don't run into hands that often, but it is important to realize that in PLO when you're playing with deep stacks, like, say, sometimes you do run into hands like that, especially when you're playing, like, in regularly, like, 5-way pots, right? Yeah. So when I go back and think about the last hand, where it's like, well, do you really expect this guy to have, like, this, or do you expect this guy to have set? Like, sometimes people just kind of have the whole world accidentally because it's Omaha, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I think I probably should have gotten away.
Yeah, I don't know.
The river
plays
was
so
really
differently
hard.
if you don't lead the flop, kind of.
That's
like
what I
Adam
was about to
said,
say,
right?
yeah.
Like, now this pot is
so I
should
should have just not gotten tricky and check called.
Yeah, it's rough, right? Because, like, the hand looks really like it's got a lot going for it on the flop, but obviously almost none of it is to the nuts. So.
Just don't make it easy for your opponents to narrow your range, I guess.
Yeah, or alternate. Yeah, that's one lesson, and I think another lesson there is when you're not building to the nuts in multi-way pots, you don't need to build the pot.
Yeah, out of position, indeed. All right. Let's get to some 140 or less.
It's 140 characters. That's it. I love hashtags. I love all of them.
Terrence Chan
needs more than 140 characters to express himself.
140 or less.
140 or less this week at DM Bakes, which is David Baker.
Young David
Baker, known as Bakes. Did I also mention that at Lee Jones is a liar that spread misinformation about Cunty Cakes, that's Jason Moe's Twitter handle. I
wasn't sure if you were going to say that.
Yeah. Should I have not said we had?
I don't know. No, that's I mean, it's his Twitter handle. What are you going to do? Like, you can't. I mean, maybe Ross can drop a bleep in there somewhere, but it's his Twitter handle. It's
at
not our fault.
Cakes on the 2+2 Shillcast.
Shots fired.
Yeah, so interesting. I mean, I think we took a lot of heat this week on the forums. I don't know if you guys read any of it.
Which thread was that in?
Well, it was in our show thread.
Yeah, and Prahlad Freeman. And also on Twitter. Like, people.
Also on Twitter. Also
some
in
hats that they were unhappy with us.
Some different places. Yeah, they were all not happy with us. Now, I don't know. So, yes, PokerStars sponsors our show.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this first for a minute. So, people were saying, and I even had a friend of mine tell me to kind of step back and think, do we do this interview differently because PokerStars is our sponsor? And here's what I know about the interview. We were interviewing the director of communications for PokerStars. He wasn't, he said some things about Jason that he apologized for in the thread. I'm sure if you asked him, he would say, I would wish I took that back, what I said. Remember, he said something about this is something that Jason's done before, complain about his chips, etc. He apologized for saying that. Should he have said that? No, clearly, of course not. He shouldn't have, and he realized that. He is the director of communications, so he wasn't the person that was there. There's, to investigate on the spot exactly on what was going on in this situation. Other people came in after. We were talking about Haralabos. We talked about Jason Less and Ben Tollerine, and even Mike McDonald came in like a week later or something on Twitter and said, look, some of this stuff has happened to me. Well, I guess a week or two after, it's sort of hard to go back and reconstruct what happened, right? You would hope that people jump up and say this stuff in the moment, like Jason did, right? And Jason did it correctly, and there should have been some sort of investigation. Stars clearly made a mistake in this instance. The floor man said something like, we're not putting cameras up everywhere because it would eat into our profits, for sure. But we didn't have the floor man who said that on the show. We had Lee Jones, who's the communicator. I'm not going to talk to him like he's 4 years old and say, don't you think your floor man shouldn't say that? Well, what's Lee going to answer to that?
Yeah, he's in a position where he can't, talk shit about his coworker, who are people who are fundamentally his coworkers, or people at the host casino, or whoever it might be. What do you want us to do to him other than berate him, right?
Well, and that doesn't make any sense. But what he did say in the interview is that if us or our listeners had any kind of questions that we can take, that Lee can take back to Neil J and the EPT staff, he'd be happy to do that. Now, everybody who jumped on and called us names and Lee names, whatever, but I didn't see anybody except one person in any of the NVG threads or our show thread take advantage of that. And say,
we said as we were closing the interview, we would love to have Neil on and
talk about what happened
and talk about take of the events.
Yeah, and we can talk about what's going to go on in the future. Exactly, if this can be something that can be avoided in the future, right? Yeah. And there was a poster in our show thread, and I want to give him credit. It's Big Old Knit is his handle, and he came in and put some completely reasonable questions together for Neil J and the EPT staff. I sent them off to Lee. Lee said he's going to go and work on getting answers to these.
Good.
And here are the questions.
Okay.
The first one was, is a dealer present at every table at all times during breaks? If not, why not? Totally reasonable question.
Yeah, and I think I even mentioned that.
I
don't remember if it was with Lee or with Everett, but there always has to be dealers present.
Our next question: are dealers told that one of their responsibilities ensuring the safety? Is ensuring the security of stacks during breaks? I.e., is Stars expecting dealers to watch the stacks and expecting players to trust the dealers with that responsibility? Is this duty clearly communicated to the dealers? So another excellent question: are the dealers properly trained? Is basically what that says, right? Third question, as Lee pointed out, without cameras, it's difficult, if not impossible, for players to prove that they are missing chips. In addition to taking pictures of stacks, are there other best practices that players can adopt that would reduce the likelihood of chip theft and or help substantiate their claims if chips do go missing? Also excellent question. If we're not going to have cameras, what's the best way to go about ensuring the security of our stacks? Next question. Several players, including Jason Moe, Jason Lesserell, Bob Timex, have said that they detected chip discrepancies during the tournament. As far as I can tell, none of them have been contacted by Stars investigators. Have you reached out to these players? And if not, why not? Totally agree with this question. I don't think there's any harm in reaching out to the people that say they were affected and getting their stories. Whether you can go back now and find out exactly
reconcile
what
that
happened
with a non-existent tape.
You can't, clearly, but this all goes to dealing with this in the future and having this stop in the future, finding out exactly what happened to them and seeing if this can help them. It can't hurt them in any way, right? To go out and ask these people these questions. Last question. Will cameras be present at all EPT stops in the future?
Yep. Great response.
Fantastic four questions
exactly.
there.
Exactly. And you know what? If people want to say that we're shills or whatever, I'll go out and say that I wouldn't play EPT Barcelona until I got a satisfactory answer to these questions, because I need to feel comfortable if I'm going to play a big buy-in tournament event, and I think people who want to play this event have the right to know these things. So hopefully Lee gets to Neil or to whomever can answer questions like these. But it makes no sense for Lee to come on the show and us to fire questions that he can't answer.
Right.
Things that he cannot respond to because he's not responsible for running the poker room. I mean, there's what can he do? He's not the guy. He's not the one.
Right. And when we have Lee on, and it was communicated to Lee, before that we were going to talk about this, we wanted to talk about this issue. So it's our expectation that Stars is going to have this, a statement or some sort of discussion about the incident ready for us to talk about, right? It's not up to me or you or Ross to craft this statement by Stars. It's up to Lee, and he was going to come on and talk to us. So I don't know if people want, it doesn't make any sense for us to have we've never done combative interviews. We're not about to start with Lee Jones. I mean, even when we had Paul Leggett and Howard Lederer on the show, they weren't combative. They were, polite discussions about stuff that happened. And I'm not saying that PokerStars or Lee are in the group.
Well, it's not to say
guys.
that these people want us to be combative, but they do want pointed questions. The point of the matter
for sure.
is
And
that
we
when you have Leggett and Lederer and guys like that on the show, these are guys who are intimately involved in the day-to-day operations of what they are doing. Right? Lee's not in Casino Barcelona,
And Lee obviously has nothing to do with, what those two guys did. I mean, clearly it's not the case. But and when Lee did bring up the fact that, he said he made the statement about Jason Moe having done that before.
He screwed up.
Yeah, but
the bottom line is Lee shouldn't have said that, and he scred up.
And we also said, that's fine, but other guys have complained about that.
And these are not guys who, whatever.
Right. Anyway, it bothers me, I guess, a little bit when people say that kind of stuff. So if they want to think that, that's fine. I'm not going to change. Clearly, I'm not going to change a bunch of people's mind. But I feel like, we're going to continue to work on this, like the offer that Lee made to clarify some of the situations and hopefully to help it from stop happening again. And, I don't know what else we can do.
You know what this means? It means the chimpanzee is getting way more votes this week than you.
He's crushing the chimpanzee.
He's going to destroy you this week.
Forum. So I want to get to some forum stuff quickly. One of the posts in the thread this week was from D. Mikey, and he said, Adam Terrence, in your opinion, what should the floormen have ruled in Ansky's case? As somebody else was saying, the ruling was in line with house rules, and the no run it twice on side pots is possibly even part of Spanish regulations. And it's an excellent point. When you get the floorman has to rule in accordance with the rules of the house. But I think a lot of the times you can look to intent, right? A lot of poker rules leave room for trying to figure out the person's intent. I mean, I think back to cases when at EPT events we had an angle shooting guy, and he was dealt with harshly, whatever. But could the floorman have ruled for Ansky in this case? Remember, the first floorman did. They went and got the poker manager. This again is the run it twice situation in the cash games.
Yeah.
They went and got the poker room manager who came back and said, no,
overruled the first floorman.
Overruled the first man. Should that floorman, in your opinion, have upheld the very first decision or overturned it?
Well, I haven't followed a lot of that. If there's a Spanish regulation that says that you can't run it twice in side pot, I mean, I don't know.
Then there's no way around it.
I mean, your hands are tied. But I mean, if it's a house rule, there is still, yes, you should always follow the house rules whenever possible. But I think there is always discretion. I mean, I think there's always discretion on the part of the person who makes the rules, and at the very least, provide some kind of punishment for somebody who is flagrantly angle shooting. Even if there's absolutely nothing you can do and say, you're fucked for 18k euros, there has to be some ability to even talk to the guy and say, you did something dirty. Like, this is a guy who's presumably a regular in your card room who knows the rules. Like, if you just want it, if by not doing anything at all, right, and going on Twitter and saying the absolute correct ruling was made, go fuck yourself. It's saying you don't care about the foreign players who come and play. We're going to take care of our own. And that's the message they're sending.
If I was that guy, I would say, all right, I'd come to the table. I'd say, what was the ruling? Okay, this is the ruling. All right, the ruling here is you can only run it twice for the side pot. So this player right here wins the main pot. Now, having said that, when that person collects the main pot, he's barred for life from this casino. He's no longer welcome in this casino.
Yeah, you can do that.
And then I would kind of turn around and I'd probably say something like,
so what would you like me to do?
Hang on. If somehow or another the amount of money that's supposed to ends up in Ansky's pocket ends up being there, then maybe I'll think twice about barring the person for life.
Yeah.
But for right now, this person gets this whole pot. What he does with it, I'll leave that up to him. But if he collects the pot, he's barred for life. Or if he he's now barred for life.
Yeah, I mean it's rough, right? Because if there's a regulation, then you're sort of skirting that regulation to some.
Yeah, but you can bar him for any reason.
No. I know, but you're kind of saying you're kind of blackmailing the guy in that sense, right? And I know I certainly don't feel bad about it either, but it's also possible that puts them in a tough spot if there's regulation. I haven't followed up all of the fallout from that thread. I think it does make a difference whether there's some sort of regulatory law with respect to that. But yeah, we're both sort of on the same wavelength with respect to this guy did a shitty thing. He knows he did a shitty thing. If you're just letting him get away with it with absolutely no repercussions, the message that you're sending is fuck you, Ansky. Exactly.
And keep on doing it.
Keep doing it. Keep getting these Americans. Screw them anyway. We don't care. We don't want them.
Just Americans. Anybody from outside of Spain.
Well, yeah. In Donnie's case, American. Yeah.
Yeah. In Donnie's case, indeed. Let's get the invitational. This is the PokerStars Invitational for PokerCast listeners. Sundays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT. I don't know, what is it in Hong Kong? Do you know the...
What's 10 a.m. in Hong Kong?
10 a.m. PST.
That's going to be a rough one.
Our listener in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I bet we have more than one.
Well, we have Australia and New Zealand.
That's right.
10 a.m. in Vancouver. 10 a.m. Pacific, so that's 1 a.m. Hong Kong time. That's going to be rough.
It's a late
for
night
me.
after you've been out having a bowl of soup.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we've had a lot of people say that they would like to have the password for 2 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
Because it's
sometimes we don't always put out like last week we put out the show on Monday. Pretty much everybody listened to the show before the weekend. But we don't always do that.
But the show's also long, and people listen to it in stretches.
I agree.
Think.
I listen to my podcast a little bit at a time as well.
Me too. So I think this is an excellent suggestion. People were going to give the password out for 2 weeks in advance.
We're going to start doing it this week.
And this week we're going to do it the first, and I'm going to leave this under the format and password up to you, T.
Okay.
Hit us with the week 1 invitational.
All right. So, well, if it's me, we've done some no limit last week. Let's do some 6 max limit hold'em. That's
well, going back to your roots.
Going back to my roots. I saw Matt Harvalenko, as I mentioned, over the weekend.
That's right.
So we're getting a little nostalgic.
The greatest limit hold'em player in history.
The greatest, yes. There's
no question,
doubt in my mind.
Okay.
And also I completely forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, like it's. Yeah, so let's do it. 6 max limit hold'em will be coming up this week. Oh, what I was going to say was people keep bothering me for strategy. People
bothering
keep saying, you? No, not bothering you. People keep
Pestering.
saying, Terrence, do some limit hold'em strategy. And I keep saying, well, ask me something. Ask me a concept, a question. I can't just be like I'm
pick one out of the blue.
Yeah, I'm just not like,
could.
okay, here's limit hold'em. I mean, but I'm going to give you guys an opportunity. Play some limit hold'em hands. If you've got a concept that's troubling you, maybe I'll talk about it on the next week's show.
A hand from the invitation.
Yeah, maybe the hand that busts me out.
Busts you out.
So 6 max limit hold'em. The password for this week, the man of the week, Steve D. And I know we always do these all lowercase.
In his honor.
So STEVED, one word.
All right.
Lowercase.
So that's week 1. That's this Sunday. The Poker Stars Invitation for PokerCast listeners. 6 max limit hold'em. Password Steve D. All lowercase, all one word. Week after, the Sunday after. What format do you want to
So that'll be the 20th. So for the 20th
of September,
we were gonna do PLO, but I think we did that pretty recently. So we can do the 5-card PLO.
Okay.
Steve mentioned if he could just add a card to a game, we could and make a game popular. We do it. So we're gonna try really hard. So 5-card PLO.
5-card PLO. 6 max.
Yeah, why not?
Full ring.
Why ever make people make?
I don't even know if there's enough cards to play full rings.
That's yeah.
We wouldn't do
that. I guess
we're not going to force them to. Play
because then you
mean.
You need burn cards.
Yes, indeed. All right, so Big O 6 max, and the password for that event is going to be.
The password was suggested by Steve as he was signing off. He said, "I fold KK."
Fold KK.
Not people are folding kings all the time on TV.
Yeah, it's not that hard to fold kings in 5-card PLO.
No, you should fold
often.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, you should type that in as you register to remind yourself it's okay to fold kings in 5-card PLO.
This is a fantastic tournament each week. Added to your grind. $500 added by PokerStars. $1.10 buy-in. So check that out. And we should have a winner on the show one time. Keep an eye on that. Roscoe,
we had Ross on once.
He did win, yeah.
I have won one time.
You are a past champion.
It's more times than me.
Are you going to Twitch? Are you streaming these suckers?
Yeah. It's just if I make it to the end of the week with money in my PokerStars account and
$1.10
and I wake up at 10 a.m.
You need $1.
There's a lot of parlays to hit, is what he's saying. Always just buy in for $1.10 less than the max. That's just all you got to do,
I guess. But it's so hard to just play one tournament on Sundays.
Yeah,
you have to. There's so many things going on at once that you want to play like a
FPP satellite to the 50K.
Yes,
that's the other thing you're playing then.
Right. But yeah, I'll probably stream.
All right, one other thing I want to get to from the comments and questions thread. This is Slow Arrow, who says, since you were interested in discussing the King pre-flop fold on Poker Night in America last show, you might be interested in the 8/28/2015. So September 28th or August 28th, live at the Bike Show. This is 50 and 100 no limit hold'em. Live at the Bike, of course, is the televised cash game that happens, the web stream that happens at the Bike. And a lot of fun to watch. If you never heard it or checked it out, go over to liveatthebike.com and
I totally forgot. I spaced out, I guess, last week and forgot to mention that I was watching this live.
So this was
a really good game. It was star-studded. Jen Tilley jumped in the game and she was very, very aggressive. Matt Salzberg was commentating on it, and he had some choice words to say about Jen Tilley's game. That's pretty outspoken.
What choice words? Like,
well, he was just talking about how spewy she is and how he doesn't think she's very good.
Okay.
Basically.
All right.
Cool.
So
it's 50-100 no limit hold'em. Tom Marchese is under the gun with kings. He raises to 300. Jennifer Tilly in middle position with aces, 3 bets to 800. Stealth Monk, Justin Schwartz on the button with tens, flats the 800. Comes back to Tom, and he makes it 3,000. And he's playing he's got about 24,000 to start the hand, I believe. So Tom 4 bets to 3,000, and Jen shoves for 21,000. Stealth Monk folds, and Tom absolutely snap folds 2 kings.
Wow.
Yeah.
Doesn't think twice about it and just snap folds them.
Yeah, it was almost so fast that you were like, did they get his hand wrong? Like, he didn't even think about it. Well, what did they report the hand? Was it like ace king or something?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Like, so obviously he must have already figured he was going to do it before he formed that. Right. So then all he's thinking about is his sizing. Is what am I going to make it, and how am I going to respond to it? Because presumably he did some time. He tanked a little bit in between, the last action for him with his Stealth Monk flatting the 800 and him making it 3K. He's already put it in his mind. I'm going to make it 3K and fold if she shoves, or maybe Stealth Monk shoves too. But that doesn't seem likely given the action. But
I wonder if it's to do with the fact that Tom just feels like there's going to be better spots.
Or that even if Jen has been playing, super loose and super aggro, that she's never going to get in her stack with less than aces, 200 big blind steep. Which I don't know. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. Only Jen knows.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty. And then he just racked up his chips and left like 2
After
seconds
that?
later.
Yeah. Oh, really?
He's just like,
I folded kings.
I'm folding kings.
Home.
It's time to leave. Yeah.
Awesome.
By the way, Steve Ruddock, who we talked about last week about that hand, Poker Night in America, we're Skype buddies, so he hit me up and he wanted to clarify some stuff. He said, first of all, that he'd played high limit poker before, 75, 115.
Okay.
So the 5K buy-in, remember, I think I said he's never played higher than 1-2 no limit hold'em buy-in.
Ah, okay.
So the 5K,
so it's still relevant, but not quite as much.
The 5K buy-in wasn't a big deal to him.
Yeah. That's the most important thing. So he's not making decisions based on the money.
Right. And second,
but he is still playing no limit, much bigger than he ever had.
Yeah. The second thing was that I think I said he turned his hand up while he was tanked. When Sean 6-bet him, or I can't remember exactly how the hand worked, but when Sean shoved and he turned his hand up, what happened? He said was he tanked and his hand was face down, and I believe Matt Glantz had called his hand, said, or near the end of his tank, said, "Oh, you got kings, obviously." So he turned his hands up to kings and then ended up folding. He didn't turn his hand up to make good TV.
Which, when you said that, I thought that was kind of funny, because I was like, well, it's already known on TV that they're kings, right? Like, not at that moment, but yeah. I mean, yeah. All right, good to know. Thanks for clarifying, Steve, and thanks for listening. And sorry I crapped on you a little bit. I don't feel bad now.
Do you?
A little bit. I mean, Ross has the benefit of every time he's analyzing hands, he knows that nobody's ever listening to him talk about how bad everybody else plays.
Right. All right. So this show went far longer than we thought.
Yeah.
Right.
We managed to carry this.
We did it without a guest this week.
We
did have Steve for a little while, but we filled the segment with some Internet Poker's Wall of Fame, which was a lot of fun. We're going to keep doing that each week. We'll pick another person.
Curious who you got next week and whether we'll be able to interview that person.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Is that the goal, that we should be able to interview the person that when we pick somebody?
It's like the Poker Hall of Fame requires that you're there in person. We could require that they're there by Skype.
They must be available on Skype.
They must be, when we want them as well, right?
Indeed. We've got a bunch of mail that we'll get to next week when we do that.
Promise.
And but please jump into the 2+2 PokerCast forum. We haven't had anybody post in the "Where in the world are you listening to" from thread for a while.
Two from.
The Kells Miles calculator is broken.
Yeah.
So jump in there, pokercast.2plus2.com. Always want to hear the feedback.
Yes.
Fill out the survey if that's stickied at the top there as well. Some other stuff. Suggest a guest. All this other stuff. And of course, the thread for this episode itself. Anytime you want to tell us what we screwed up on the show, I'm sure it's myriad things.
Special thanks going out to Chris Grove, who joined us in the first segment to talk about the Michigan thing. Of course, Mr. Steve Day for driving up from from the United States of America to Canada's hat to talk a little bit about his career on the PokerCast.
Yeah.
Thanks to you, Terrence, for the last show that we're going to be able to do sitting facing each other for a while.
2015.
A little while.
Yeah.
Well,
and,
unless we make it to Germany.
Yeah, somebody's pushing hard for making it to Germany.
And or us.
I just really want to see Terrence.
Yeah. Just bring the recording gear, and I'll find a custom.
Terrence will meet you there. Yeah. For sure. All right. Thanks to you for listening to the show. We will talk to you next week.
Peace.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a really interesting
Tough
sweat
field.
and make it to the, Yeah.
Imagine. It's heads up with Elke or something.
I would be surprised if Elke cashed even.
Yeah, I'd be very happy to be heads up with Elke. All the people to be heads up with in that spot.
He just plays super tight and just says how sick everything is.
So sick.
Have you watched him on Twitch? Is that what he's doing?
Yeah, he folds everything. He just folds forever.
Does he?
Yeah, he's super tight.
All right,
we're recording.
Thanks for joining us. The 2+2 PokerCast has been presented to you by the PokerStars VIP Club.